council receive the presentation for information. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Don't all speak at once.
Well, I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Seconded by?
I'll second it, Councilor Lamb.
Thank you, Councilor Lamb. And I'm assuming nobody's in disagreement. That's carried. Next item, 4.2, is an update on the nursing station funding application and project costs. And Councilor McEwen's going to lead this one off. He is on the nursing station committee. We also have with us tonight Marcella Scholdes, who is the chair of that committee and the vice chair of the West Parry Sound Health Center board. And we also have Jim Hanna, I believe, from West Parry Sound. So, Joe, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marcella Scholdes will actually basically do the presentation. I will make a couple comments. We appreciate the opportunity to bring this to council. It's been quite a road to hoe. We've, I guess we were so excited back when we had a potential grant of 80% to cover a nursing station expansion, and things didn't come to fruition on that point. We've since been working around sort of smaller numbers to hopefully come in with something that can be doable. The grant has been applied for, certainly, which is up to only $100,000, and we had hoped maybe $300,000 or $400,000 if we were into a seriously big project. So I just might comment that we've pared it back from what our hope was and what our original thoughts and visions were. That was 1,500 square feet additional with some basement under it. We pulled it back to basically 1,000 square feet with a basement under, hopefully the whole thing. And in doing that, the service providers, the service people have spent a terrific amount of time assessing what can be changed and put where and what we can do with what. So we've taken out a few things and moved some to the basement to make it more of a doable exercise. So anyway, having said that, I'll turn it over to Marcella. She has a little presentation to walk us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for accepting our request to do a deputation for you and an update on the nursing station. I just wanted to clarify, Mayor Comrie, I am here as the chair of the Nursing Station Advisory Committee. I am not here representing the hospital tonight. Jim Hanna is doing that for us tonight. So. I also wanted to mention, I do believe there are several members of our Nursing Station Advisory Committee on the phone or not on video tonight. So they have come out to hear what we are presenting and your response to that. So I don't see the presentation on screen, but the councillors, I assume you all have it. So I will just jump in then. So I want to just briefly go over again the case for expansion, just to remind you why we believe this is such an important priority for the area. We have had rapid growth, approximately 50% growth from 2018 to 2019 in the number of patient visits at the nursing station. And this was attributable in very large part to population growth and aging. Service enhancements, we have more staff there. We have a broader scope of practice for a nurse practitioner. And we also have infection controls and protocols due to the pandemic. So these are all driving a need for more space. When that figure was provided to us, we did not have the full year for 2020 data. And my understanding is, although I don't have the final numbers, my understanding is the numbers are up significantly again in 2020. And that's driven in, by many of the same factors. But also that patients are finding it easier to get in-person visits with our nurse practitioner than they are with their family physicians in Parry Sound. So in addition, the third slide now, the the growth, we are expecting it to continue to grow, the demand for these stations. West Prairie Sound Health Center has applied for a significant increase in funding to add staff to all of the nursing stations in the area, including ours. And the West Prairie Sound Health Center is also expecting that the role of these clinics will expand as we develop more as an Ontario health team. And we are expecting these will play a key role in that. So really, in summary, our nursing station, as the slide said, has grown into a significant multidisciplinary clinic. And we expect that growth to continue in the near term. So on the next slide, I knew you'd all be interested in who actually uses the nursing station. So this slide was prepared by West Prairie Sound Health Center. I'll just explain it to you before I go through the numbers. The numbers behind this are the number of unique patients, so individuals who have used the nursing station over the last 3 years, so 2017 to 2019. And they are sorted according to the address that they provided when they came to the nursing station. So this is not an OHIP address. This is the address they provided. So some of these would have provided their local address, certainly permanent residents would have. Seasonal residents, we're not sure which address they would have provided. So they may be in the municipality count, or they may be in the other count. We don't know for sure. So we've provided a breakdown. And as you can see, Whitestone has well over a third of the patients over that 3-year period identified as having an address in Whitestone based on postal code. Magnetawan had almost a quarter, so significant use there. McKellar, about 14%. Surprisingly, we had 8.5% of our individual patients came from Parry Sound and McDougall. Surprised me. And then other, as I said, I think that includes Sundridge, South River, Sundridge and Berks Falls, and then mostly the Greater Toronto area. So any questions about this chart?
Hi, Marcella. Yeah, so the actual figures from Whitestone, you said well over a third. What's the actual percentage?
35.8%.
So 36%.
Yep.
27. Pardon?
Correct. 24 for Magnetawan, 14 for McKellar.
24 from Magnetawan, 14 from McKellar, and 8.5 from Parry Sound, and then the rest are others.
Correct.
Okay. Are you going to talk about, you and Councillor McEwen, going to at least Magnetawan and McKellar and giving them the pitch? Are we going to talk about that later on?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McEwen started a bit on the space needs. We had developed an estimate of our original needs based on the current pressures at the site, discussions with other nursing stations in our area that have recently expanded on what they would or wouldn't do differently, input from West Prairie Sound Health Center, particularly around the role of these centers in the Ontario Health Team, and expectations of new and potentially permanent infection control protocols for these clinics. So that's, and then on to the next slide. So we proposed initially, as Councillor McEwen said, an expansion of about 1,500 square feet. This turned out to be quite a sizable expense, probably more than we felt was appropriate for this building. So we took another run at it, and we did move some of the space requirements. We said they could be accommodated in the full basement. We also decided we probably didn't need a conference meeting education room, since we have the library across the street. We have the community center also across the street, and one day when the municipal offices are expanded, there may be meeting space there as well. So we didn't see value in having that duplicated. And there was also some reconfigurations in the plan that helped us bring the footprint down, and we ended up with a total estimated space of about 1,000 square feet above ground with a full basement. So we have provided to you what we received from the architect. So the first slide is the exterior view. And the top picture is if you're standing, in the parking lot of the community center looking towards the Duck Rock. So that's the front part is the existing structure, and you can see a little bit of an L coming out the back. That would be the expansion. And the bottom one is just from the other side of the building, standing with your back to the Duck Rock looking towards the community center. And that would be your additional patient visit rooms across the back. So we're looking at an L shape. And I think, as Councillor McEwen had mentioned, your site feasibility study said that it could well be accommodated there. And I believe there was holes dug to test for rock to see whether the basement was feasible or not. And my understanding is that none were found. We've included the grade level drawing and the basement on the next slide. I'm not sure there's value in us inching our way through that, but we did want you to have it so that you have what we have and can see what we're planning. We could take questions on it, but I wasn't planning to walk you through that. Are there any burning questions on that? Okay. So this brings us to the part that we're all interested in. Michelle, did you want me to go through this, or do you want to go through this?
Thank you, Marcella. Either way, I think we've all jumped through it. I may start. I may do an introduction to it. How's that?
Yes, that would be lovely.
What we did, and this is really draft proposed, capital letters. When we knew the approximate cost of the expansion, which was around 650,000, I moved it up to 700,000 just for discussion purposes, because if we go ahead with this, it won't be done until 2022. Obviously, construction costs would increase, but I think the 700 is a generous amount. And initially, actually, before we even knew what the percentages were related to how many visitors from each municipality, we just came up, or I came up with the draft proposal. This is the third iteration, I believe. And just trying to figure out how we could fund. We knew the starting point was the $100,000 ICIP grant. And we knew that there was no more. It was $100,000 full stop. And if we wanted to fund this project, there had to be other ways of doing it. We also knew that there was $115,000 existing money in fundraising from the Westbury Sound Health Center and the bingo funds. So we had that. And then I looked at how else we could fund this project. And because we have until the end of 2022, it made sense that the three municipalities that I considered, at the time I didn't know much about McDougall and Parry Sound, I'd suggested that 80,000 a year from Whitestone, and as you can see, 30,000 a year from each of the other municipalities, and then looked at using some of the Safe Start funds, and also additional fundraising from the Nursing Station Committee. And all of these numbers are just a starting point for discussion. We don't know at this point whether McKellar and Magnottawan would be willing to contribute 30,000 a year. They're supportive of the project, but they didn't know what the ask would be at the time that Marcel and Joe went to their councils. And then filling in the blanks a little bit with the Safe Start money. So that's my start of the conversation in terms of how to finance that. And I'm happy for you to jump in, Joe or Marcella.
I will comment, I guess, Madam CEO. Yeah, we looked at a lot of different possibilities here, and as Madam CEO mentioned, we have it over 2 years, so it gives us some slack in terms of having to go for quicker money, and we haven't until after this meeting, until it's presented at least to our council, gone to fundraising groups and set up a real action campaign sort of thing with the municipalities to raise money for this project. We presently have, as is noted there, $115,000, which has been raised by various organizations. When we do get a feel for this sometime, and hopefully the fairly near future, as to where we might go with the fundraising, that could change the numbers and the actual demand on the municipalities for capital outlay. And when we put it to tender, I think we probably are somewhat high on this, my personal feeling. We were a little gun shy after what we saw the library group go through with the tendering and what the prices came back at, and council had to revisit, and it turned in at quite a higher number than anticipated initially. So we don't want to hopefully get into that situation again. So we're hoping we're at least in the ballpark, and when it does go to tender, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll come in at a much significantly lower number than the 650. So I don't know what else to say here. I guess the 80,000 and whatever we can get from neighboring municipalities, we'll be looking at debenturing a certain amount of money potentially when the time comes, and hopefully we can minimize that through grants, not so much grants, or possibly grants. We can still look at that over the next year, see if we can get some assistance. But through the fundraising and whatever foundation monies we can come up with to assist us in the project. Marcella, do you have anything further you'd like to comment?
Well, I guess my role will be mostly with the new fundraising for the nursing station. And I have spoken with Kathy Lamb, who was, I think, the brains behind the fundraising for the library, and had a very, very good discussion with her. And she has given me a lot of comfort that the community is not tapped out, and that a well-run campaign that this would be a comfortable target for us to achieve. And, you know, looking at some other opportunities we have for fundraising and, you know, private foundation donations as we got last time, I feel very comfortable that we can hit that target.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there, well, it's Jim Hanna, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the Health Center, I would just like to add our thanks to you and Council, Michelle, the staff at the municipality, and our own staff in the nursing station, and Marcella's group at the advisory committee. This is an exciting project, and we thank you for the work you're doing. Every day we're living with COVID 24/7, and this is a positive, a good news project that we're all looking forward to seeing some success. So thank you.
Thanks. Are there any questions from councilors for our presenters that haven't already been?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. Marcella, Kathy's brought me a lot of comfort over the last 49 years too. I wanted to just say that. Anyway, I'm all for this. This is the type of investment we should be making in our community. So, you know, whatever I can do to help inch this along, I'm more than willing to do that. Having said that, I guess my comment would be, what you need to identify in terms of either fundraising or whatever is a clear vision of what the extra services are going to be at the nursing station, and therefore what bang are we getting for our buck? We haven't heard any of that, right? Is there going to be physical therapy? Is there going to be whatever, right? There's not very much meat on the bone with respect to that, I guess. The 700,000, Councilor McEwen was right. Our library was 700,000. No way to test your 700,000. I trust Michelle and Councilor McEwen and others, but but 2 years out, construction costs may be much higher, and but if people are satisfied with the 700, then low is me. What I am concerned about is when you have you know, basically a third of our people are from Whitestone and the rest are coming from north or from other places. I realize that third may be a little higher because people are using their home address, that there might be seasonal people who use their home address. But clearly, I guess my question to you, Michelle, is when you say 30,000 a year from McKellar and 30,000 from Magnetowan, if I heard you right, what's that, 30,000 per year for how long? Hello?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's just for the 2 years, 30,000 per year for 2 years, which would support the construction costs. After
Okay,
that,
so I've read,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. I've read in the newspaper that McKellar is somewhat amenable to some contribution. I mean, how did you feel Magnetowan were? They clearly have a quarter of the people. Do you think we're going to get any money out of Magnetowan?
through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an answer for you. I think until the ask is made, we won't know. And I think that's the best answer I can get. What I had done, in light of this presentation coming to council, I had let the CAO know at Magnetowan, and I talked to the folks at McKellar that this was going to be in our presentation, and it was really there for discussion purposes, and that there would be a further presentation at their councils, you know, because they're both going through budget discussions at this point. So, but there was no yes, but there wasn't a no. So I guess we're cautiously optimistic, and that's probably the best answer.
Question, and I'll leave it here, but you know, I negotiated all my life, so I'm going to negotiate right now to Jim, particularly, is for years, Magnetowan, which has a high population in the summertime, has asked for some relief on weekends at the nurses' station, be it a Saturday or something, right? And that we've always been told, oh, you pay for it and you'll get it. Well, if we're going to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on an expansion, we paid for it, so we should get something, right? So put a note down. I don't see you writing there, Jim. You better be writing right now that and tell Donald Sanderson that we would like to look at least some summer hours for, you know, July and August, when someone gets a fish hook in there. They don't have to go all the way into Perry Sound, and they'll get relief. You'll have relief from the emergency ward. So over and out. That's my comment and question. Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions from councilors?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment on, if I could,
Yes, go ahead.
on the visitation we had with Magnetowan and McKellar. We were, I thought, very well received from both councils, and I know we're leading into right into the midst of their budget season as well currently. So it will be interesting when we go to them as to just how they feel about contributing. We'll certainly be asking for, as you can see there, I feel a significant amount from those locations, from which the patients have to travel a considerable distance compared to in Whitestone, although Whitestone's pretty darn big too, or bigger. So anyway, we're very, very hopeful, and we'll be approaching that in the very near future.
That's correct. Thank you, Joe. Well, the final slide we have does say that we are planning to go to both Magnetowan and McKellar to their next council meetings. I was just waiting till after tonight to put that request in to be on their deputations for early February. We are also working in the background to identify other funding opportunities, be they grants or donations from private organizations. And we will also begin pulling some sort of a plan together to kick off our fundraising. I don't think we can afford to lose much time on that if we want to make these targets. So that'll be the next task for our nursing station committee.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this agenda item?
Yeah, I'm going to add one more. When there's a lot of American people, particularly over in Magnetowan, who use the nurses station in summertime. And I think they don't pay for nursing care when they come to the nurses station. And they may well not be Canadian, but American residents. And if that's the case, then they ought to be paying when they come to the nurses station. And you make that note too, so thank you.
Noted, thank you. And if it gives you any comfort, the Amic Harbor Cottagers Association will be very high on our list of organizations to pitch. Trust me.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Are we ready to move on then?
Mr. Mayor, it's Doug Hickey. Could I make a comment or no?
Well,
It's 30 seconds.
30 seconds, Doug.
Okay. As a seasonal resident, I just want to add that there's a lot of effort underway from a business development to retain people in Whitestone and to attract people to Whitestone. If we have an expanded nurses station with a lot of healthcare, people will want to come to Whitestone and stay here. So I think it's a great idea from a business perspective as well as from a health perspective.
Thank you. Good comment. Okay. If there's nothing further, can I get a mover and seconder that council received the nursing station funding application and project costs update for information?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews, seconded by Councillor McEwen. Are you seconding?
Well, I will certainly
I'll
second.
do it. Councillor Lamb.
All right. Thank you. I'm assuming everyone is in favor of receiving the report. My thanks to our presenters. You're welcome to stay with us if you want, but if you have other things to do, thanks and enjoy the rest of your evening. Councillor Lamb had asked for just a minute for this item, which is not, maybe before we move into committee of the whole to deal with the planning matter, which will go for some length. If you wish to say whatever it was you wanted to say about the pool, perhaps I can simply introduce the subject by letting you know that there was an effort just prior to the Christmas break to send out simply a note to post a note on the website and on the Facebook page thanking the people who attended the meeting on the 14th. And the note was going to say that there were some good questions raised and there was work. We were going to do some work in the background in an attempt to get some answers to some of those questions. That work is still going on. And a couple of councillors thought that there was no need to try to provide an update because it wasn't really an update. So that's why there was nothing put out on the website or the Facebook page. However, and we're still not in a position, in my view, to provide any material update, nor are we in a position to take any decision. So that's why it's not on the agenda, and we're not going to have a public discussion about it tonight. But Councillor Lamb, if you have something that you want to say, please go ahead, and
I will. I'll be
we'll pick up
shorter than-
we'll pick up your second topic when we get back to talking about our future meetings later on.
Sure, I'll be shorter, I hope, than you do. Well, anyway, the letter you were talking about came out, and I started by revising it. I found, quite frankly, it was 2 pages, It was very long. It didn't catch anyone's attention, and we would lose people halfway down the first page. I also felt it was very biased towards the sell job for the pool. So I wanted to redo it. And then I talked to Michelle and said, I don't know why we're putting this out. And I think she said that Councilor McEwen had expressed the same thing. What it started with, quite frankly, was that the cost of a 20-year loan had gone up from our initial, there was an error made, and it had gone up from whatever, 1 point, I'm not going to quote the figures, but the 20-year loan had gone up, and we were going to try and communicate that to people. Well, it turned out to be this long, long letter, right? And I still question, we're going to put it out, we better put out a totally unbiased discussion. The other thing that I've heard from last month was that the mayor wants to wait until the actual funding comes down in order to have a vote on this thing, right? Well, that's never come to council for discussion. That's not a mayor's decision, that's council's decision. And although I'm not necessarily against that, that needs to come to council. We just can't let it sit up in the air and say, well, when are we going to do it? I don't know, the mayor wants that. Like, we have to discuss when we're going to do it, and should have been on the agenda tonight. The other thing that people are most interested in is, you know, people have been sending comments in since November, and they've been sending questions in, and the mayor just commented. And right, we have to answer all the dozens of questions that people ask. We ask them to ask questions. We can't not give them an answer. So someone on staff has to tally them all and get an answer for people. Also, when it comes to the number of people who have responded, Councillor Woods and I went in on Wednesday and painstakingly went through everything, okay? And I can tell you that as of right now, and there's been a lot more come in over the weekend, that the tally is in total, we've received 278 responses from voters in Whitestone. And of that figure, 218 of them are against this project, and 60 of them are for the project. That's the current count.
Mr. Mayor, are we going to get into this kind of an analysis?
Hold on a second, Mr. Mayor. I have the floor, and let me. Councillor McEwen always wants to butt in when he hears something.
Councillor Lamb, please finish your remarks, and let's not get an argument going on the floor.
But at some point, Mr. Mayor, you have to tell Councillor McEwen that he's not in Robert's rules. I have the floor, and let me
Please finish.
I'll finish fairly quickly.
Please finish quickly.
That's the tally right now. And again, people can do what they want. And Councillor Woods can comment whether if I'm saying anything inaccurate. The other thing is, do not ever think that this is a seasonal versus full-time argument, because it isn't. There are as many local people who live here full-time who are against the project or for it as there is seasonal people. So don't have that kind of argument come up, because we found that wasn't in the emails that we looked at. So we have 3 or 4 things that we should have been asking and dealing with tonight that we're not, but I'm bringing them up. One is, are we sending a letter or update out? And if so, what's it going to be? And I think the tally and other things should be in there. Are we going to vote as a council when the funding comes down or not? We should be discussing that. The answering the questions is another thing. I know many of the questions because I copied them down, and I'll assist staff in that, but we need to get answers. I think personally that we need another meeting on the pool before funding comes down, and it comes on Tuesday and we vote on a Monday, sort of, right? We need to have lots of time for people to digest it, and I think we need another meeting to go over all the questions and get the proper answers. Thank you. I'm done.
All right,
Mr.
thank
Mayor,
you.
could I-
To answer Councillor McEwen's question, we are not having a debate on this item. It's not on the agenda. The simple answer to the question that Councillor Lamb is raising is that there is work going on in the background, as I said, to provide some answers. I knew that we would not have answers for tonight's meeting. It did not seem to me to be a good expenditure of anybody's time to have a debate about it when we don't have all the information on the table. And we're not under pressure to make a decision. We can make a decision if council wishes when we have all the information on the table. The goal was to provide that information and schedule at an appropriate time. So that's the only answer I have to
Mr. Mayor, can I make a
the
comment?
matter that's been raised. You can, but please be please be
It'll
brief.
be
I don't
very-
want to turn this into a major item when
No,
since it wasn't on the agenda.
I agree with some of what Councillor Lamb said, but with due respect to everyone who has taken the time and some put considerable effort into the plus and the minus, for and against, which I hoped we wouldn't get into. Very disappointed that he threw those numbers at us like he did, because when I did my analysis of it, I was looking at about a 2-to-1 sort of ratio of the no's versus the yeses, and there was as many duplicates in the no column as there was in the yes column. So, you know, it was for councilors to look at, study, review, and help make their own decisions on this major significant project. So I agree, we'll have to have a special meeting on it, and I hope we don't turn it into a referendum type thing, which is borderline what's happening here. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might ask a question, Councillor Woods, the statistics and the tally that I've come up with you, is there anything that I've said on this pool tonight that you think is inaccurate or should be changed?
Can anybody hear me now,
We can hear you.
Mr. Mayor? Okay, I was having some issues there. I was trying to chime in earlier with a couple of things, but no one could hear me. So I missed part of that conversation. I had to hang up and call back in again. Councillor Lamb and I did sit in the office for a few hours, probably about 2.5, 3 hours, going over all of the emails, and we went through. And if we saw someone says no, we tallied it no. If they said yes, we tallied it yes. If they had questions, we, took a check mark under the question marks. They're very accurate. I understand where Councillor McEwen's coming from. I did speak to Joe before I had went into the office, and maybe there was more that came in after Joe looked at the emails and Councillor Lamb and I went in, but that's an accurate number that we went through there. The only thing I could suggest is if someone's disputing what those numbers might be, it might be a good idea for all of us before we have any kind of special meeting is to go back in and look at some of those again if anyone doubts those numbers. But it was all on the up and up when Councillor Lamb and I went in there, and we did take quite a bit of time reading through each individual email just to make sure that we got an accurate number for everyone.
Well, I assure folks my tally was accurate.
We we did encourage counselors to come and take a look at the binder containing the responses. The comments, the ones that have comments are probably as significant as the numbers are, but in any case, I'm not sure that everybody has done that. I myself have not seen, I've seen probably most of them, but not all of them. So anyway, it's this is all information. Just to clarify one more time for everybody, this is information for counselors to use when counselors make a decision when we have a meeting. And trust me, there will be lots of notice for folks. It won't be you get a last minute thing on the agenda that you didn't know was coming or anything. There'll be lots of notice when we are ready to make a decision, if and when we're ready to make a decision. But that in the meantime, I believe there will be more information available to us about certain aspects that were raised in the meeting on the 14th and in various comments by ratepayers. So please, to the ratepayers on the call, please just bear with us. You've been heard, and there will be an opportunity for us to have more fulsome discussion at another meeting. With that, I would like to get a motion to move into committee of the whole. It is, sorry, I'm just looking for my clock here. It is 7:38. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Wood, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
can I assume that no one is opposed? Thank you, that motion is carried. We now turn to a couple of planning items that council asked to be brought forward. If you look at our action items list, you'll recall that there was a thought that we would have public meetings on into the summertime, but council requested back before Christmas that we move it ahead to a meeting in the early spring so that we might be able to include some information about the relevant meetings in the February newsletter that goes out with the February tax bills. So our planner, John Jackson, has prepared a fairly lengthy report with quite a bit of background material, which I trust you've all had a chance to see. We're just going to have a presentation by him and a discussion of these items, and we'll get some direction from council then on how we want to move forward with these. So, John, if I could turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The matter of the housekeeping zoning bylaw was brought up typically as a matter of a routine kind of exercise. And I think in the fall when we brought it up, we kind of surprised some council about the substance of it. But there were a lot of questions that we took back and would hopefully have it explained in the current documents that are before council. And I want to underline that the purpose of these amendments are purely housekeeping. We never looked at them in terms of having critical staff or significant changes that staff would have otherwise brought more to council. So again, I want to underline these technical changes are housekeeping in our view, and we hope that we've answered some of the questions that council had last time around. And if we get the direction, I think this is the kind of exercise that makes the bylaw better. And we would, as a staff, proceed to put them in effect as soon as we went through the statutory public meeting process. So I just ask if there are any questions about this housekeeping exercise. I would do my best to answer. I'm not sure if the CBO is on the call, but he certainly and I have worked together with Paula in planning to answer the questions that we thought were relevant from the last go around.
Mayor, Councilor Lamb. A couple things. Some of the stuff we're talking about, particularly the trailer bylaw tonight, I would think that the bylaw officer should be here. He's the one that would have to enforce, if we go forward with the trailer bylaw. So maybe he's on the call here, but I don't think he is. And if he isn't, I think that's not absolutely in the right spirit in this thing or whatever. He should be on the call. Anyway, and he's had a history on that. But having said that, if you're doing housekeeping things, I said to someone yesterday, this past week, well, we have dogs in the area have to be on a leash. And he said, nope, they don't. And I was stunned by that. And he said, in the dog bylaw, that isn't in there. So if we're going to housekeep, I don't know whether that's called housekeeping, but we've got a whole lot of issues with dogs walking up and down our roads who are off leash and doing whatever they do, their business or anything like that. So I want that to get visited if that's true, and I take it that it's true because I was told right from the horse's mouth. So I think we should add that to the housekeeping issue. Thank you.
If I could clarify, Your
Yeah.
Worship, through you.
Go ahead, please.
When we speak about housekeeping, I'm strictly talking about land use controls or zoning controls. So two things Councillor Lamb is speaking to. One is actually the next item on the agenda, and other bylaw issues that are outside the parameters of the zoning bylaw weren't what I'm addressing in housekeeping. Housekeeping that I'm speaking to are just land use matters. So those certainly are important. The trailer issue, he's right. The matter will be the next item on the council agenda. If there are other bylaw issues, those are certainly important, but they're not part of the specific zoning housekeeping matters that I'm speaking to.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. I can also report, just looking at my list here, that both our CBO and our planning assistant, Paula Macri, are now on the call. So if there are, if we need them to weigh in at some point, we can ask them. Are there questions with respect to the zoning bylaw amendments? And I think you'll recall there were, I'm just bringing it up on my screen here, but I believe there are 6 of them. Is that right, John?
Yes.
Perhaps what we should do is kind of just maybe just go down through them and see if councilors have questions or concerns about them. The first one had to do with the definition of sleeping cabins, which the proposal is to remove references to bunkies and simply talk about sleeping cabins. So how about that one? Any questions or comments on it? Are you happy with it the way it's proposed?
I'm happy, Mr. Mayor.
Is anybody not happy with them? With that?
I'm
particular
okay
one?
with it.
And you, Councillor Lamb, you were concerned about the number being restricted to 1. Is that that's
Well,
okay with that?
what page? I know there's a summary in here, but I got 249 pages sitting here. So what page is it? I know it's before the accounts payable, but I'm not exactly sure where it is. I think I found it.
It's on page 6.
I got
would
it.
say.
I got it. I got lucky. I picked it up out of dozens of pages. Okay. Yeah, number 1, I'm okay with.
Okay, that's the bunkies versus sleeping cabins is what the heading is on it. Item number 2 had to do with.
Basically, hold it. What we're trying to do is make it all consistent and call them what? Sleeping cabins, isn't it?
That's
And
correct.
secondly, limiting it to 1 per lot or 1 per place, right?
That's correct, Your Worship, through you. And with some other changes that I think will be helpful, we're increasing the size and just making the legislation more clear.
Well, the size, I asked the other day, and I was told that the size of a bunkie can be up to 524 square feet or something like
Yeah,
that.
you're correct. That's correct, Councillor.
So what size are we increasing?
It is allowed to. It's allowed to be 5. I think the translation is about 540 square feet.
50 meters
What
square.
is it now? Isn't it that now?
I'd have to check with Tyler. I'm often confused between McKellar provisions and Whitestone. Maybe Tyler could answer. It may still be 50, which is fairly generous for an accessory building.
Tyler, do you know the answer?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, you can.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so currently it's 50 square meters, which is about 540 square feet roughly. And we weren't looking to increase that size. We were simply trying to eliminate the confusion between the bunkie and the sleeping cabin. So again, as explained in what John has put together, bunkie is only mentioned in the definitions. So it's sleep cabin, but it's also mentioned in the general provisions. So we're just trying to streamline it, get rid of bunkie, and just keep the sleeping cabin. But right now, the way the bylaw is worded, it is plural, meaning you can have more than one. So the change is basically just get rid of the word bunkie in the definition of bunkie. It'll just be sleep cabin, which is the same thing, and limit it to one.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods.
Go ahead.
I was actually the one the last time we spoke about this that questioned as to why one. Now, I mean, I could see one on a smaller property. You know, you got, say, a 1 acre lot, waterfront, or even not waterfront. If you had one cabin, more than enough space. But I mean, we have a lot of properties in this municipality where, you know, you could have your cottage up at the front towards the road. Maybe it's a small cottage and you put in a little sleeping cabin for when your kids or your in-laws come up. But some of these properties are 100, 200, 300 acre properties. And so I couldn't put a second sleeping cabin way on the back end of my property. I don't understand that one. I don't agree with that one, to be honest with you. I mean, if you got the space and you're not looking like a little bed and breakfast or something on a small lot, then I don't see the reason as to make it just one sleeping cabin per property.
Okay, well, thanks for raising that. Does anyone else have the same concern or have a response to that?
If I could, through your worship, the line that one needs to draw with respect to what constitutes a principal cottage use or residential use with an accessory building, it's somewhat obscure. I think that to suggest that you could have a number of sleeping cabins goes potentially over a line, and it's a fuzzy line, a theoretical line, where you change the principal use from a single family use of a cottage property or a residential property, and that's where we get a concern, and that is where do we corral this single detached family use on a property? And our findings are that if it's open-ended, it becomes a problem. Under the guise of single detached family dwellings with appropriate single accessory uses, you could go beyond that line and end up with, I'm going to suggest a non-residential use pushing towards a commercial use, and that becomes an issue. If you want to go beyond that line, there's a couple of options. One would certainly be severance. Another would be a special consideration. But if we don't control it, I'm afraid that we end up with more problems than we solve or legitimately or logically provide for. And that amount of a 50 square meters or 540 square feet accessory bunkie or sleeping cabin now is pretty, I'm going to call it pretty generous. in the world of sleeping cabins. So it's I know it's not necessarily shared by all, but we have to put a line because zoning bylaws have to be black and white. They can't have grays in them at this point. So that's why we're coming forward and suggesting that, you know, we allow one, and that's the size.
Question for you, John. You said, well, it could be a special consideration. If somebody wanted to build a second one, but let's say they were in fact small and they're not, and they could demonstrate that they're not trying to turn it into a lodge with sleeping cabins for rent. What would the special consideration be? Are you talking about would it be a zoning amendment, or would it go through a committee of adjustment, or what would it?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like you can buy, and everyone in our Google world knows you can go and buy a 250 square foot prefab little bunkie or sleeping cabin. And so let's say somebody had a family arrangement that they wanted 250 square foot of these prefab high quality buildings put on their property. I would say that, you know, subject to council's assessment of that, it's not violating the spirit of the bylaw. We just have to tweak it to allow it if someone wanted to proceed in that fashion. So it's not about not being open-minded to these things. It's just the black and white world of what a zoning bylaw does for us. So yes, you could make exceptions through site-specific requests.
Would it be would a possible solution be to word it the way it is, but to say that it's a maximum of 2 with a total area of the 50 square meters or 50 meters square?
That would be certainly possible if council directed us to go in that direction. I just to give you sort of an experience I have in the archipelago, and the archipelago is not a sister municipality of any sort, trust me, but it allows 3 50 square meter sleeping cabins for every lot. Now it's not apples and apples because they have standards that are quite significant, like a minimum lot size of often 5 to 10 acres. But when they let that particular animal out of the barn, they hate it. It's created a monster that they can't go back on. So they're having a great deal of difficulty with a principal dwelling, you know, of up to 3,000 square feet and 3 540 square foot cabins, which creates, they believe, something that's not fitting in that box of a single detached dwelling use. But they don't know how to go back. So once you open that door, it's very hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen, I was thinking the same as you just suggested, to a maximum size. Maybe the 50 meters is a little bit small. Maybe we up that and increase or change the wording to include 2 buildings to a max, and maybe say 60 meters. Or if the 540 seems suitable, up to 540 square feet max.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lamb, I can kind of live with that. 2 buildings to a maximum of 540 square feet. Yeah, I think I don't have a big problem with that. I think what we have to be careful of, obviously, is that we're not running into septic issues and other things, right? You don't want to load up, as I think Mr. Jackson said, with 5 bunkies and 25 people, right? So we have to be cognizant of that. But
Okay, thank you. I guess from my point of view, there's, if we ever get back to the days when people are bringing up their extended families for a Thanksgiving weekend or something like that, there might be situations where you would just as soon have 2 separate bunkies to accommodate people as opposed to one trying to fit everybody into your main building and one larger one. So I'm not sure that's that I don't really have a problem with relaxing it to say 2, but as long as it's not, we're not opening up a slippery slope for people to have essentially a lodge with rental cabins under the guise of a residence, right? Non-commercial use that John referred to. So, and I don't know if that's the problem that that you were saying Archipelago was having. Are they finding that people are saying, oh, hey, we can turn this into a commercial use. We just won't tell anybody. Is that what the problem is, or?
It's density. It's as you described it, having innumerable numbers of guests on properties that have limitations.
Okay, so if we were to put this forward as has been suggested, that is to a maximum of 2 total area of 50 square meters, would anybody be opposed to that? We're not making the final decision now. We're just trying to refine what ends up getting presented to the public for discussion later and subsequent approval at another meeting.
Yeah, that's you will hear, we will get additional response, presumably council, once this is circulated, and we can easily circulate that as a provision.
Okay, so item number 2, since I don't hear anything further, let's move on to item number 2, which is saunas. Does anybody have any issues with saunas, with the way they're?
Mr. Mayor, I'm okay with it. If I could, I just have a question on maybe located in any front yard, side yard, rear yard, in other words, all the way around. Am I reading that correctly? Or do we want saunas at I don't know, all the way around a building with say municipal road going right past the side of it? Could be right inside the road, or I'm not sure what that means, Mr. Jackson.
Well, what we found was the yard requirements were missing some of the.
It was the side yards,
vision.
I think.
Yeah, well, I think it was front and rear yards weren't there, so there was no guidance for the building department to specify where they were located. So this of many of the housekeeping changes is purely clarifying what was not clear.
So by definition, can be anywhere on the property, any side.
Yeah, yes, subject to the yard provision set out.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the tendency is to get saunas close to the water for waterfront properties. That's the general human perception and desire.
Okay.
So item number 3 was setbacks from environmental protection zones, EP zones. This one was to add an exception for docks, correct, John?
Yes, and the reality is that the requirements for docks, if they're built either as floaters or with limited impact on the lake bottom are allowed without question. So they're viewed as having very, very little risk or little impact. So we thought that our bylaw provisions sensibly should align with the provincial requirements for docks. So it's simply making that alignment with those provincial rules.
So if I might, number 3 and number 6 basically are for the same purpose. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct, Councillor.
Yes, some of you will recall that we had wanted to put a dock in front of the playground area at the Dunchurch waterfront, and that had been shown historically as an environmentally protected zone because there was some aquatic plants in the water close to the shore. They're still there. And so in order to, I guess, to set a good public example, we had an environmental assessment done by consultants who do this. And they came and said, oh yeah, a floating dock is no problem there. It is not going to impact. In fact, fish like floating docks, and you're not hurting anything by putting it there. So that was that's what the item 7 refers to specifically. But in any case, it's all that it's all that same thing. We got basically 3 items dealing with that general subject. So are there any other questions or comments about 3? How about 4, docks in front of shore road allowance? That's the question of docks where you don't own the shore road allowance.
And this provision would allow you, even though you don't have the shore road allowance owned at the outside of your property, it does allow it, subject to obviously complying with the bylaw requirements. This is one that I think drives Tyler crazy from time to time.
Well, Councillor Lamb, I was just going to say it's correct. What I think is probably dozens, if not hundreds, of docks that are built throughout the municipality already existing.
That's correct. Okay, so if nobody has any further comments about these, we're assuming, at least our planner is going to assume, by the way, that if we don't speak up and suggest a change to these things, that these can be put forward as they are, as proposed amendments. So, but anyway, item number 5, which I think is really the only one that we haven't discussed now. Adding a seasonal dwelling to permitted uses in the rural residential and rural industrial. Is that right, Rui? rural industrial zones.
Yeah, so this was just a case of making the residential zones that were not on the waterfront council consistent with the waterfront. There are some technical advantages to construction, particularly in terms of economics. If you can have your building qualified as seasonal, where you can save some costs for some of the very stringent energy saving measures that otherwise would apply for non-waterfront properties if they're not allowed to have a seasonal resident. And these become more and more significant as building code changes become upgraded, and we often find that it's not handcuffing the building department if they have that flexibility, and often it is not that significant, but it can be important to an individual property owner. Maybe something that Tyler might wish to speak to, Your Worship.
Tyler, any comments?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, we have ran into a few properties that were maybe better suited to have a seasonal dwelling rather than year round. But again, as John explained, the way our zoning is currently, it's not really permitted. Most people are constructing cottages nowadays, even, you know, with the same standards as a house. But in the code, there is a difference with wording and in that. So I think it would be a good idea if it was, you know, allowed that little bit of flexibility. Again, as Paul and I do receive a lot of inquiries in regards to what's permitted in the different zones and that. So.
Okay, then. Any other questions or comments on these? By the way, if you're looking for a nice compact summary of this, turn to page 12 of 249. There's a table there that lists the 7 items. I'm sorry, I said there were 6 before. There's actually 7. And you can see what the current, what the existing zoning bylaw says, what the proposed amendment is, and there's some comments. So it gives you a good summary of what the proposed changes would be. Any question or comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb. I don't have a big problem with this. I just wonder why we even have seasonal dwelling, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. John, I heard you say about energy and things like that. I think hydro has pretty much got rid of that designation, and I think they brought in full rates for people, but I might be wrong. So I even question whether that advantage even exists. I always thought sometimes seasonal people, you know, had to pay more for hydro, for instance, because they were only seasonal, but I may be wrong. The second thing is, I guess I heard Tyler say there's stuff of differences in building code or something, but, you know, from my standpoint, a dwelling is a dwelling, you know, but I guess you two guys need it for other purposes. I'm not standing in your way. I just don't understand why we have it.
Well, it's interesting. You're right. There is this subtle difference between hydro rating costs between seasonal designated property owners versus permanent, but we're speaking of things like energy recapturing requirements. Like the minute you would say, I'm building a year-round home with year-round, I'm going to call it systems like furnaces or plumbing. If I could, and I'd like to get Tyler way in on this because I'm speaking as a planner and I don't have the talent to speak as someone who knows design, but I would say if you were to build the required year-round home standard for energy purposes, you're probably going to be looking at construction costs that are 40% higher than they would be to build seasonal standards, where you can shave on things like heat recapturing systems for example, for hot water coming out of a shower, which would be a system that might be several $1,000s to get that little bit of heat recaptured that goes to prevent it from going down the drain. So it's significant, but as Tyler says, most want to build as energy efficient as they can, but some of these systems have extreme costs associated with them.
Tyler, did you want to add anything?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, John did a really good job of explaining that. And just kind of from my point of view as well, so if somebody had bought like a rural property, and this is the case, I'm using a real example, and they're, you know, planning on building some sort of a dwelling there, but it's just going to be their, you know, a cottage or a place to ATV from or whatever. Like right now, they would have to go to the full extent of the energy efficiency design in that as per the building code. Whereas if we did permit that wording for seasonal dwelling unit, they can get away from that, which does save them quite a bit of money. I think it is kind of attractive to bring people to the area as well. You know, with those exceptions, we already allow hunt camps, but that's in specific areas in that. So it's not, we don't really have anything addressing the seasonal dwelling other than on waterfront lots. So.
Okay, well, thanks. If there's nothing more, perhaps we should move on to the next item, which is 6.2. Can we do that? Okay. There are two proposed amendments to the official plan that have been discussed, and you've seen them on the action items list for quite a while. The first one was a trailer policy update, and you'll recall the history. We did have a trailer bylaw. It turned out that it was inconsistent with the official plan, and so that bylaw was rescinded, but we used to have provision for people to have trailers on their properties under certain circumstances and pay a fee to do it. And then the other item is the possibility of building on private roads. And you'll again see there's quite a bit of relevant material, background material on those subjects included in the agenda package. So John, I guess, can you take us through those in order? I don't know if there's any brief way to do it, but.
Yeah, I think, Your Worship, you captured the essence of it, and we've been around the subjects a number of times. We kind of got blocked out by COVID because we wanted these important topics brought to a seasonal appropriate meeting, and that was the kind of problem that we created. So the background has all really been done. It was just a matter of the public consultation process to move forward on these items. And I think there's certainly, in my understanding of council, there's a clear wish to move forward, but it now goes back to we still have this outstanding input that we want to receive from the constituents about any concerns or suggestions. And so the trailer one's pretty simple. We like the way we had it. We got out of sync from our policy to our bylaw. That's something that bylaw enforcement can weigh into. I think we know where we're going to go on that. Also, the private road issue is much more technical, but we do want to, again, take it forward to a public meeting. So we thought at this point, we wanted to include the newsletter item of these two planning matters that, you know, stand by, we're going to have a public meeting. So I think this is more just to underline, hopefully through that process. And I gather there is a letter, information letter going out, a newsletter sometime in the early spring that
February
should include, yeah, that these things would go in properly and say, stand by. As soon as we can hold an appropriate public meeting, we're going to do so on these items.
Okay, well, how about trailers? You can see in your package what was discussed previously in terms of a proposal.
Yeah,
Are there
I
any-
agree that if I can just insert, Your Worship, we always found that through experience and through bylaw, the 1 month grace seemed to work okay. So we wanted to go back to that. What I've noticed in a little bit of feedback that we've got in the last year and a half or so is that there are interests that might want to extend that, but there are other interests that don't, or such, but we have to wait until we go through the public process to get there.
So I don't want to be the only one asking questions, but I guess a question that occurs to me is that seemed to me one of the concerns people have was that if if folks are putting trailers in their front yards, especially if the property is not very large or whatever, then the municipality ends up kind of looking like a big trailer park. How would you address that concern? Is that the sort of thing that should be addressed in a clean yards bylaw as opposed to the zoning bylaw, or as opposed to
Well, this issue, Your Worship, is more about how long you can put a trailer or an RV on a vacant lot. The trailer or RV use on an existing developed lot is something that's handled through setbacks and yard requirements, and as accessory structures are guided. But this issue is more, can I put a trailer for an extended period of time on a vacant lot?
on a vacant lot? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a couple here?
Sure.
Just a comment. First, I think the 30 days was kind of accepted. We had a couple of, for someone come forward and say they wanted it extended beyond that, but it seemed to me the 30 days was pretty appropriate on the long haul. On the vacant land side of it, I noticed that some municipalities, they require some form of septic, whether it's privy or some form of septic requirement before you can place trailers or use vacant land for occupation, weekends and tenting and all that kind of stuff. That to me would be kind of a serious, significant item on it. And then secondly, the number of units, especially if it's a trailer going on a property for up to 30 days, I would suppose we only want one trailer there for the 30 days collectively. Those two items, septic.
And those are details, Your Worship, that are part of the policy discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
And I suppose that it would be correct to say that another question would be, is there some sort of a charge to recoup the fact that folks who do this are generating garbage and potentially generating fire calls and various other things? So the question of what they should be charged to do it, I assume, is also one of those
Yes, and
policy items.
yes, the province opened up the ability to charge a license in those instances.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron?
Sorry, somebody else had a question. Councillor Lamb, was
Sorry.
it?
No, maybe it was Councillor Woods, I think, maybe, and then I'll go after him.
Yeah, I just got a couple of quick things. First, on the trailers one, I mean, the 30 days at least once in every calendar year. When I first bought property up here, I went in and I had an appointment with Dennis Roundtree and Chris Armstrong, and they both told me flat out that I could have a trailer on a vacant piece of land for 30 days, and then it has to leave that property for at least 24 hours, and then it could go back. And I know a lot of people had that impression. Whether or not that's the way the rules were written is, I guess, completely different. But if you got a vacant property, that's just a hypothetical. Okay, so say you got two siblings that buy a vacant piece of land, and they want to bring their kids up, and they each have their own trailer. we shouldn't be telling them that they can only have one trailer between the, you know, a brother and a sister, and there are maybe 4 kids between the two of them. And I understand completely when it comes to wastewater and, you know, septics, and I'm not disputing that fact in the least. I think we should address that. But most newer, bigger trailers, they come with their own holding tanks, right? And if you're only going to be there 30 days in a calendar year to make someone put an outhouse on there, that would get, you know, like a Johnny on the spot rental, say, kind of thing. That's pretty expensive. I mean, if I'm only coming up a couple of weekends and I'm not allowed to leave my trailer there, I myself have called for rentals of those Johnny on the spots, and they're not cheap. They're really not cheap. I mean, I could see if we were going to allow people to leave the trailer on the property like a trailer park season, and then say that they have to have or present us with a contract from, say, someone like Adams Brothers saying that they would be emptying their septics and they have to prove something like that. That I could see. But I mean, this is a big issue with people. And I know Councillor McEwen, you just said that most people were okay with the 30 days in a calendar year. But I'm going to tell you, the meeting that I was at when I was on the floor, there was a heck of a lot of people in the crowd that were not okay with only 30 days in a calendar year. Now, I'm not saying that I am or I'm not, but a public meeting most definitely is where we're going to get these answers from the taxpayers here.
I think, if Your Worship, I agree with Councillor Woods that we definitely need that extra layer of input. I think we've got a good core understanding, but there are going to be opinions, and they're going to be different opinions from the constituents out there. So, you know, in the newsletter, it'll keep it to date. What I don't see in my crystal ball is when we can hold such a meeting. I'd love to be able to hold it in June, for example, or July.
Maybe we will.
Cross our fingers, Councillor.
Yeah,
Councillor
Joe,
Lamb.
so I guess I got a bunch of thoughts going through my head, and I kind of agree with a little bit that everybody said. Councillor McEwen is right. I mean, the background I know on going into my 14th year on council was that we had a trailer bylaw, and whatever was in that trailer bylaw, if Paul Rossiter were here tonight, which he should be in my opinion, we would ask him whether he had any issues with the trailer bylaw in enforcing what we had in. And he would tell you very few issues, whether people were doing it illegally, legally, whatever. There were very few issues. Okay, so I'm not saying we replicate it. My feeling is that 30 days, you can take it, you know, take it home for, I think the intent was you can take it home for a weekend and show up next weekend, and it's 30 days total, right? But my feeling is that there's trailers, and then there's trailers, right? There's nice trailers, and there's really bad looking trailers. And there's a big difference in my mind if you were in a rural setting, which is what I heard Councillor Woods when he was coming forward, you know, with others, it was a rural setting, than it is a waterfront subdivision type. But if you have a $600,000 cottage that you've just put up, and someone's allowed to come and spend the summer with an old ratty trailer or 2 or 3, that's a lot different situation than being in a rural setting where the trailers are, you know, 10 acres back and in the bush or something, right? So it's a very tricky sort of thing how you do this thing. I'm not for charging them. People forget that they use the services, the dumps and everything else. They pay taxes. You know, if we're going to go down the route of saying, well, you know, you're up here and you use the dump, we're going to make you charge you $20 a month because you're using the dump, then that's a false argument. There's seasonal people that only use the dump for 4 months of the year. Do we charge full-time people more because they use it all year? I don't get it. I don't want a fee for such services. I am concerned, as other people are, with wastewater. It needs to be addressed. okay? I don't want stuff seeping into lakes or dumping somewhere that they shouldn't. I don't understand wastewater as well as I should, but I don't want that. So I think there's more work to do, and I don't think it's simply a matter of a public meeting. I think we need to think through some of these issues. And I know there's a lot of information in there, but we need to come up with something that's workable and enforceable. There's no use putting bylaws in that when the bylaw officer comes back, then I can't enforce that. Paul Gray and Perry Sound won't enforce that. You know, that's a dumb way to run anything, right? And so we need more work. I think we have to look at a rural setting versus a waterfront, type subdivision type situation. That's why mostly we put a bylaw, a trailer bylaw in years and years ago, was because what was happening was people were buying waterfront property, sticking a trailer on it all year, and they had no interest in building anything, right? And people started to get really upset, and we don't want to go back to that. So those are generally my comments. I think I'm agreeing with parts of what everybody's saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could say one quick bit there, it won't take too long at all.
Go ahead.
I completely understand what Councillor Lamb's saying, and maybe I didn't say that properly, but I was more referring to like a rural larger property. I wasn't saying, a 1 or 2 acre waterfront lot, somebody shouldn't build something there and they should stick a, half dilapidated $1,500 trailer there. I would definitely not like to see anything like that happen. But he's right. There's a lot that we have to think about and consider before we go ahead with this, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make one little comment?
Yes.
Sorry. One thing that was inclusive in our, I think, application or info to the ministry and such was we were looking at even tents, and it's more the use of vacant lands than so much the trailer and or motorhome and or tent. It's overall general use of the vacant land that we wanted to give people. That's what I heard more from these people who came out. They felt too restricted on the use of their properties. Totally. And they wanted to see some general restrictions so that if you did have a vacant property, you could come up with a tent, you could come up with a pop-up trailer, you could spend the weekend there or come up on weekends. And that still doesn't preclude my thought on, I think we need some control and regulation on the gray water, the septic and that kind of disposal side of the fence. So anyway, that's something else to be considered down the road here. Thanks.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. It's Scott Nash. Am I able to ask a very quick question?
Yes, please. Please.
It'll be quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
It sounds like, I know council is very busy with looks like lots on their plate, but I guess I have 2 quick questions, and I think it's for the bylaw amendment, but also for the private roads. And it's a simple question, really. Why would the municipality be dealing with it now? If I'm correct, is there not an official plan that's going to be brought to the table in the next couple of years? And if that's the case, maybe if the pandemic was over, that would give ample time to have discussions leading up to it, and also for public input. I guess that's my question, is kind of when is that next official plan, and would this be done before that, or would this be done at that time?
Okay, perhaps John Jackson should answer, but we're probably we really just amended our official plan not that long ago, and we're not required to do a major review of it for, is it another 10 years, John?
It's a little bit fuzzy because they changed the legislation to go from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Where you did a whole new plan, which is what we did, you get 10, but we were under the old act. But you're right. I do think that our new policy document is really not old enough to kind of revisit a whole review. So these are hang-ons from things that we found we needed to clean up more as a result of updating the last official plan. So I think we wouldn't wait to get these things done, but we're 2 or 3 years out from a more comprehensive review.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I thought it was closer and I didn't know it had changed from 5 to 10. So thank you both. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. I'm looking at the clock here. It is 8:30, and I'm wondering if we are going to have enough time to get into the second matter under 6.2, which is the development on private roads. And I'm thinking perhaps because we do have a number of other things that we really need to do tonight, and I'm wondering if we should move ahead. And I mean, if we do have time, find out that we have time, we can come back to it. But we also have a very quick in-camera session after this meeting. So I'm going to propose that we defer this second item and pick it up perhaps at our next meeting. Before I do that, I guess I should check with our CAO clerk. Is there do you see a problem with that, Michelle? We're not really making any decisions. We're just discussing what's going to be on the public when we do decide to when to have a public meeting. We're going to be going into this some more, so we're not. It's not like we have to get through it all tonight, do we?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The direction to staff was to bring this OPA number 2 to the January meeting so that there could be a notification in the February newsletter that the information is online. We were to send to the Roads and Lake Association to give people a lot of time in advance for a public meeting, the date of which has not been set. And you know, a couple of years ago, it was intended to be somewhere in late summer so that our all of our residents, you know, seasonal and full-time, could participate. So I believe the cutoff for the newsletter items is around February 12th because the newsletter goes out with the tax bill and there's a very prescribed timeline for when the tax bills go out. And I think the understanding was that it was really bring this back, bring John's report back, make sure council agrees sort of in general that, you know, there's discussion items here with no decisions to be made, but to understand that this would go on as a link in the newsletter, well, the newsletter that's online, and then we can tell people where to get to it for the hard copy. So those were the timelines that we were working with. Now we're flexible at council's direction, but that was the original intent, to bring the information forward to council and then on to the community so that they could have a look at it, think about it, and be prepared for a very robust public meeting when the time came.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I didn't see it that way. Maybe I misunderstand. I mean, these are two, not so much the trailer bylaw, but the road situation is a big item, very complex. That's why we got these pages on it. And we're certainly not going to include anything tonight here. I thought we wanted it to come early in the year so that we could get, you know, some information to the Roads Association so that they could take it out to their people, or they could have it as part of their meetings in July and August or whatever and get it back to us as to what they think. And then we have a public meeting. To just have a public meeting in May, you know, you'll get 20 people, you know, and they won't understand it. So I think there's a far more robust communication plan here. And you know, I could go on. I like questions coming out my gazoo on this road thing. I'm generally not against it, but anyway, I don't see it as we cram it in, not cram it in, but we discuss it tonight. And I might also make the point, this is the very reason that maybe council should have had more than one meeting per month in January and February or whatever, right? We haven't even touched the budget, not even touched it tonight, which we usually do. So we need to rethink that policy. We need to have 2 meetings a month so we can lessen the agenda. So those are my comments, but I certainly don't see this going to a public meeting in May because we sent something out in the newsletter in February. I don't think that's right.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the public meeting, from what I understood from council, was to be in late August, not in May. Just for clarification, thank you.
No, I was
Mr.
going to,
Mayor, we've got lots of time to discuss the road policy particularly and get a letter to people, right? It can go out in another newsletter at a later date, as long as they get it. Most roads associations have their meetings, in July and August where they get more people, they can send emails and stuff out. So I don't think you see any rush to tonight to discuss the roads. And I'm not against it, by the way. I just think we have to communicate, right?
I'm,
I also think, sorry.
I was going to say my understanding was pretty much the same as yours, Councilor Lamb. I thought I guess the question for us to see it tonight was if people had some serious concerns about bringing it forward. If they don't, then I would assume that the next step is that we provide an information package for people to look at, and then a public meeting they would have between, I don't know, so the spring and the end of the summer to discuss it before there'd be a public meeting. So I was just wanting to make sure that we weren't missing something by deferring it tonight, but in the interest of time, I really would like to move it, and we can bring it up. In fact, we'll see where we go. We may end up having our next meeting, I think, isn't scheduled till the middle of February, but we may end up having one in 2 weeks' time if we have enough other material to deal with then. So can I get a motion to reconvene to the regular meeting at?
Mr. Mayor, could I have a comment on that, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what you said and what Council Lamb has said. I was hoping that we would at least inform people, just so they know that this is an ongoing process that we've had in there for unfinished business. And if we can get them thinking about it, and whether it's the people on the lakefront or the people along the roadsides, there are people on the lakefronts who own a lot of pieces on the roadsides. There's just a real mixture of all kinds of ownerships and such back these roads. And I think, and just in transparency, if we can at least get people give them some thinking about the thing, inform them that we're looking at doing or considering permitting these roadsides, I think it would be good information to get to people so they can just start getting on the stream with it. I've talked to a couple of people in fairly recent past here, and they had know nothing about it. They have no concept about what we're talking about until you talk to them for a little while, and then they may or may not agree with it. I'm not sure, but I think it's just an information thing. And the one meeting a month makes it really tricky. We're going to be piling stuff into a single meeting, and the same thing's going to be happening over and over. Like this has been going on since last year, actually, when we were too busy for all kinds of different reasons, and we'll keep pushing this item forward. So anyway, if we can put something in just to inform people that it's going on, it's ongoing, I think it would be a good move. Just my personal comment. Thank you.
Mayor?
Okay, well,
I agree 100% with Councilor McEwen. We need to put something in the newsletter that we're looking at the development of back lots, which until now have not been subject to development. And these discussions are going to go on, and we'll get a hold of your roads association and you, and whatever we want to say in a paragraph. I think we should tell them that. Maybe if we haven't concluded a trailer bylaw, we tell them that we're looking at a trailer bylaw. Right now, there isn't one. And, tell them that too. Though that's communication. That's transparent. And I agree 100% with what he said.
okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to reconvene to the regular meeting, please?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded
I'll
by
second Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. I assume everyone is in favor of that. Thank you. Now, there are matters arising from the committee of the whole. 6.1. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for this. Whereas John Jackson, municipal planner, has presented a report to the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone regarding housekeeping zoning bylaw amendments dated January 18th, 2021. Be it resolved that council receive this report as information and that council directs staff to circulate the report to municipal road and lake associations and post the report with amendments on the municipality's website in regards to a public meeting to be held. There's a blank space here, but I don't think we need to set the date of the meeting right now. Let's just say to be held late summer. So could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Just
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
what we talked about. Thank you. Councillor McEwen moves, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you. Is there consent for that motion? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll declare the motion carried. And that brings us to 6.2. Whereas John Jackson, municipal planner, has presented a report to the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone regarding official plan amendment number 2, trailer policy and private road policy update dated January 12th, 2021. Be it resolved that council received this report for information and that council directs staff to circulate the report to municipal road and lake associations and post the report with attachments on the Municipality of Whitestone's website in regard to a public meeting to be held in the late summer of 2021 at a time that is convenient to all ratepayers. So that one's it's worded a little more precisely than the last one, but it's the same effect. So
I'll make the motion for discussion.
all right. Councillor Lamb moves. Is a seconder?
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Okay. Was there some discussion? Councillor
I
Lamb?
think it should, I don't know what the exact wording is, but I think the last paragraph should be, and take council's comments into effect and bring it back to the next meeting or something, right? Because we didn't conclude anything.
Well, you're right. As a matter of fact, there were comments. If I go back to the 6.1, there were comments related to the housekeeping zoning bylaw. So I think what we should do, post the report with attachments and incorporate council's comments. So that takes care of the first one. Thank you. That's a good, that was really a good catch, actually. Trying to just move it forward, but get clear what it is we want to do. As far as I'm wondering if what we should do is direct staff to circulate the report and or simply make we could say circulate the report, you know, for information and give notice of the public meeting or something like that. So that, because we haven't made any, especially with respect to the development on you know, on non-municipal roads, private roads. We haven't dealt with that. We're going to have to do that in another meeting. So, you know what, we could defer this whole thing to another meet, this whole 6.2 to another meeting if you want, I guess.
I'm not sure we shouldn't do the same for 6.1, or did we agree on all those housekeeping things?
Well, I thought we did. They would have to come back, that what comes back would have to be amended, so.
No, I realize, but did we, when we went through those, weren't these the 6 things?
Yeah, 7
Did
things,
we-
yeah.
Did we conclude all those things?
Well, I thought
we
we
know-
did. We
Okay.
made some changes to one.
Okay, good. So if we've concluded that, then that's the 6.1 is good. 6.2 just, we can defer it. You know, John's got to come back with some answers, and we have to have another meeting on it, right? Hopefully 2 weeks from now.
Okay, would council agree to defer this? 6.2, any resolution on 6.2?
I do.
Is anyone going to object to deferring it?
Well, Mr. Mayor, to get it correct, are we going to have this on the next newsletter? Probably not. Eh?
Oh, yeah, I think we would put it on the newsletter by way of notice saying, here's some information. We're saying that, let people know that this is happening for sure.
Yeah, no,
We need to do that.
I'm fine with that. That was the objective.
But the, you know, if we were to propose a specific solution, let's say to you know, to the development on private roads, that would require some discussion, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mark it as deferred. And we'll pick it up later. Thank you very much. That brings us to the consent agenda, which consists of minutes of the regular council meeting of December 7th, minutes of the special council meeting of December 14th, the list of unfinished business, and 2 reports that council has requested in past years relating to the revenues and expenses from the 2 bottle sheds. Can I get a mover and seconder that the council receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda as detailed above?
I'll move,
I'll make
Councilor
that
Pierre.
motion.
Okay, I'll second, Councilor Pierre.
Or I'll second. It doesn't matter.
Well, okay, Councilor McEwen was first, so Councilor Gorham Matthews can, and she's the author of one of the reports, I believe.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about these, about this motion?
I have some questions, Councilor Lamb. With respect to the bottle shed revenues and comments, I guess, on the bottle shed. And I have no problem with Beth's report. I think it's excellent, and I want to thank you, Beth, for the hard work that you do at all, and your small group of people that do it probably. So thank you, and that's very good. With respect to York Street, again, I want to thank the people that work hard, and there are a lot of people who do a lot of hard work and do during the year. But I do have some concerns. The revenue from the bottle shed at York was, $21,700, and that's good. The only question I have is, the biggest expenditure during the year was $6,109, and it was in August for the purchase of bins and Dyson. I understand what classroom supplies are, but what are bins and Dyson? The only Dyson I know is the vacuum cleaner.
I can answer that if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they purchased bins to help with the sorting. So they bought some giant plastic bins because it was easier to return some of the wine and liquor bottles in the giant bins as opposed to boxing them all, because they just get smashed when they get returned to Magnetawan. So it was a time saver. They can count the bottles that go in. The Dysons were the Dyson air cleaners, air purifiers, and they bought them for all the classrooms at the school because a lot of the older schools don't have great air circulation. So the majority of the expenses that York Street, and I'm not involved in York Street, I just have kids at school, so I know this. The majority of their expenses that they spent at the school this year were making it safe for COVID for the kids to return. So they purchased air cleaners and purifiers for all the classrooms. They purchased tons of picnic tables and whiteboards so that they could have outdoor classrooms. They also purchased water coolers because the fountains had to be closed so that the kids weren't all using the same fountain. So each classroom got a water cooler so they could refill their water bottles. So that's where a lot of the classroom supplies were, just making it safer, even though it's a small school, just making it safer for when they returned from the COVID situation.
Excellent, thank you. My next question is, the last page in December, it says library donation. I want that donation. It was a donation of time where a bunch of people, including myself and staff, worked at York Street to clean up what was truly a mess at the time in the summertime. And in fact, it was such a mess that they paid us more money than we were supposed to get because we kind of cleaned it up. So I don't want to call it donation unless you want to call it donation like slave labor or something. But anyway, we worked very hard that weekend, and it's not a donation. So I don't care what word you want to use, but it's not donation. Having said that, I brought up 2 or 3 months ago at the bottle shed, issues at the bottle shed. I said that the buildings that were bought, in my opinion, were too small. There's too small sheds. There's no doors on them. Raccoons were living in them. And I was assured that there would be doors on them in the winter, because I said, what's going to happen is all the bottles are going to sit there in front of the shed, and then it's going to snow on them, and then we're going to have a mess. I went to the landfill site yesterday, and sure enough, there's all the bottles sitting with the snow, and the same thing has happened. So, you know what? If the school can't handle the amount of bottles, and God bless them, maybe they don't have enough. I said for years that there should be a tally system for graduates, at least, to say, you put so much time in with your parents, and that trip that you're taking, which you probably don't have a trip anymore, will work off the costs of your trip. But if you don't do any work, we're not paying for your trip, or some system. That's what happens in hockey teams and all over the country. You work off what you do. And if you don't have enough people, then we need to look at a different type of arrangement. And I don't know what that is. And I don't want to, I have no solution tonight. But what's up there is not working, and we've got to recognize it as a bit of an issue in the community. And I'm not trying to damn the people that are doing the hard work. Believe me, they do hard work up there, but sometimes it's just too much for them, right? And maybe people are drinking too much under the COVID rules. I don't know. But anyway, that's my comment on the York Street bottle shed thing. And when are we going to get doors on the doggone thing so they're not piling up outside? Or when are we going to get bigger sheds? which is what I suggested to begin with.
The,
For you, Mr. Mayor, may I
go
just
ahead,
make
yes,
one
if you
comment?
want to answer. Sure.
Yeah, I just want to comment that because of the lockdown again, no one can return bottles to Magneto One right now. So until February 11th, there is nowhere for the bottles to go.
Well, Mr. Mayor, in the summertime, we bagged them all and we had them ready, and at least they were in bags, not under the snow. And they're just going to pile up, right? And there's two aspects to it. Doing the work to put them in a bag, and the second part's taking them to Magneto on or whatever. Nothing's being done that I can see right now, because they're all piled up under the snow, outside of the shed. Thank you.
Well, without prolonging this discussion, there is a door for the larger, for the sorting shed that is ready to be installed, and it was supposed to be installed before Christmas, but it was not done for exactly the reason that you mentioned. The whole in front of the place was boxes of bottles that were frozen into the ground, and the people who were going to come and do the sorting, and did in fact come and do the sorting, weren't coming for a few days, so we kind of missed an opportunity to get it there. But that will get done. Beth, however, is correct. The problem that we have right now is a problem of the fact that we're once and again in a situation where the bottles, there is no place for the sorted bottles to go. The shed that holds them, my understanding is that it's full, and there are a couple of trailers that are also full that are ready to take bottles back when they can in fact be returned. But there's been, throughout this whole pandemic, the return has been problematic because the folks at the Magneto One Home Hardware who take them back are not willing to take the large quantities of bottles that would normally be returned in one load. So they end up having to be stored somewhere, and we don't have enough capacity to store them. But I think there's some hope that that situation will in fact remedy itself, unless this pandemic is around forever. Hopefully we'll get to the point where normal returns can take place, and then assuming there are sufficient volunteers to do the work, then they should be able to keep it clean. It's not I agree it's not a desirable situation, but the number of volunteers is relatively small. So anyway, that's my answer.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
Just wondering, did I lose my camera here? I'm not. I'm not. Oh, there we are. Okay, sorry. Yes, you may. Brian, go ahead, please.
I haven't been in York Street in a little bit. The last time I threw my garbage was out at Ald's when I was visiting my dad. We had an old bin there, a 20-foot can. I don't know what I think we used it for tires at one point years ago, and it was pushed off to the side. I'm not saying for a permanent solution, but for the overflow of bottles from the bottle shed, would that be any help to stick them in there, kind of thing, bagged up, while until we could bring them all back?
I don't think David is still on the call, but I was going to get him to confirm this. My understanding is that, in fact, before he joined us, that particular can that you're talking about was scrapped because it was full of holes and the doors wouldn't close, and And it leaked water and everything. I'm pretty sure it's gone to the scrapyard.
Okay, okay, no problem. I was just offering a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else about the consent agenda? Or can we approve it? There's a motion on the floor moved by Councillor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews. Anybody opposed? All right, that one's carried. Accounts payable. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that the council approve accounts payable in the amount of $550,867.16 and payroll in the amount of $61,970.19 for payment. Would somebody
I'll
like
make
to move
that-
that, please?
I will.
Councillor Gorham Matthews moves, seconded by
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? It's a long list, I know, but are there?
Yeah, it is.
I have
Hold on,
one
man. It's a long list. It's a long. Okay.
Question about one of the items. Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead, Beth, please.
It was on the second page, the second one down, number 35540. It was for Tim Dobby for the West Prairie Sound Economic Development. I'm just wondering, is that our share of, like, do we have to pay a portion of hiring the new economic development officer? Did all the municipalities there in it pay this amount as well, or what was this for?
Over to the CIO clerk for this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can explain. That is the full amount, and because I'm the chairperson of that committee, and this was an outstanding invoice for a couple of months, I had our staff pay Mr. Dobby. However, there was a transition between CB and DC and the Economic Development Committee, and the Township of the Archipelago has taken on the responsibility of managing all the funds for the Economic Development Committee. So they have been invoiced, and in fact, a check has been issued to refund that to the municipality of Whitestone. The transition and how our funds were managed for economic development took about 2 months. So I felt it was appropriate to pay Mr. Dobby, and then we will be refunded shortly. In fact, I've heard the check has been issued. So there's money in the bank that the Economic Development Committee has. So it's really just a collective expense for the area municipalities, not for the municipality alone. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other items you wish to question or?
I just, I have one, 35652. I guess it's for tires, so we paid $18,000 for tires. I didn't know what local authority services limited is. I think that's a tire supplier or something. The grader was 1,141, and then it was, here's what I was really questioning, 12,768 puts the bridges, culverts, goods, and supplies. So I don't know, is that what, the rest of the trucks or something? And why would it be charged the bridges, culverts, goods, and supplies? Again, that's at the page of, that's at the bottom of page 115 of 249.
So, can you hear me? I'm hearing a lot of static.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So Local Authority Services is what we actually refer to as LAS. And this is a group purchasing service that our new Public Works Manager brought to our attention. I was somewhat aware of it sort of vaguely, but there's all sorts of savings that you can get when you're a municipality and you're part of this service. So he did some comparison with tires and got a good deal. I think that the bridges and culverts is a culvert purchase. I'm just going to check the invoices here and I'll let you know. Sorry for the delay. There's lots of invoices today. 652. Yes, sorry. That makes sense. There was culverts, couplers, split couplers. So those were purchased. And that was at the cost of, that's the $12,765.36. Yes, culverts and couplers.
Are there any others?
So I have one quick one, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Let's see, payment number 35674 on page 119. It's for Schlager Bridge repairs, $2,266.46. What did we have to do some repairs on one of the bridges, and which bridge was it?
What number was that one again, Brian?
Page 119, and it's under 35674. Schlager
Yes.
Bridge repair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was on the wrong page.
So this is part of a capital expenditure that we have. We have about $30,000 in the budget for miscellaneous bridge repairs. So for this bridge, and unfortunately it doesn't state which bridge, and David has the meeting. Remove old railing off of bridge, replace railing with new pressure treated lumber, install 4 10-inch by 10-inch corners of steel beams at guide rails, and labor to help with the above work. That was the and I will let, I'll find out from David which bridge it was, and I'll send an email to council.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any others? If not, I'll ask our CAO clerk to call the roll on this one, please.
I will. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute there.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. That brings us to section 11, bylaws. We have a couple of these, and they are for the most part, I think, routine bylaws that we pass every year at this time. 11.1, a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet expenditures. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 01-2021? That's first bylaw of the year, being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, be read a first and second time this 18th day of January 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed the this 18th day of January 2021 and numbered bylaw 01-2021. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move, Council McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Any discussion? Hearing none, can I ask the CAO clerk to conduct a roll vote, please? Recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Sorry, I just got back. What am I approving? The bylaw?
bylaw
To authorize
0121.
borrowing.
I'm all for it, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Wood
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Second one, bylaw 02-2021, being a bylaw to levy certain interim rates, taxes, and charges for the year 2021. These are the rates that we put on the first tax bills, first set of tax bill. Can I get a mover and seconder that bylaw 02-2021, being a bylaw to levy certain interim rates, taxes, and charges for the year 2021, be read a first and second time this 18th day of January 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 18th day of January 2021, and numbered bylaw 02-2021.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by
Second, Councilor McEwen.
any discussion about this one? Okay, please read the roll for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Lamb,
Yes,
thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Wood,
Yes.
thank you. And Mayor Comrie.
Yes. That's carried. Thank you. 11.3, can I get a mover and seconder that bylaw 03-2021, being a bylaw to set tax ratios for municipal purposes for 2021, be read a first and second time this 18th day of January 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 18th day of January 2021, and numbered bylaw 03-2021.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by
I'll second it.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Any discussion? Okay, sounds like there isn't any. So once again, recorded vote.
Thank you.
Please.
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
yes,
thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Thank you. That's carried. Finally, we have 11.4. This has to do with capital fund borrowing for the Canning Road and Balsam Lake Road. It's not Balsam Lake Road, it's Balsam Road, Canning Road and Balsam Road. Sorry, let's take the word lake out of there. At least unless it's a new road that I don't know about. They get a mover and seconder that bylaw 04-2021, being a bylaw to control the capital fund borrowing for Canning Road and Balsam Road under the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OILC, for 2021 be read a first and second time this 18th day of January 2021, and further read a third time past, properly signed and sealed this 18th day of January 2021, and numbered bylaw 04/2021. Moved
I'll
and
make the
seconded
motion,
by,
Councillor Lamb.
thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second. Councillor Woods.
thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a recorded vote, please?
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Yes.
And Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Thank you. That's carried. That brings us to staff reports under item 12. And we have a few here which are for information. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? That the Council of Municipality of Whitestone received staff report building 2021-01, covering the period of October 1st to December 31st, 2020, building department update and status of building permits for information.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by
I'll second it.
Councilor Gorham Matthews. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Or
I do, Councillor Lamb. Thanks, Tyler, for your report. Once again, it's really good. The only thing I say, and maybe it's covered in one of your dot points, is we've got to go after, I bring this up every time we talk, but I know you're trying hard, but we've got to go at the old building permits and close them out. So I know that's a long list. So just keep on trucking, I guess, is my comment there. The question I have is when Councillor Woods and I were in the office the other day, you mentioned something about late year activity or something, and I didn't quite catch it. I got home and I was thinking, well, what Tyler's saying, I probably wasn't listening. And I don't know whether that's appropriate to bring up or not. If it isn't, just don't answer it. But if it is, comment on it.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? It was very broken up. I couldn't really understand it.
Yeah. My question is, when I was in the office, you talked about late year activity or something. I didn't catch it. And I said, can you kind of just tell us about whatever that was? And if it's not appropriate to comment on it, don't. Like I just, it didn't compute with me when I got home. So
I apologize. Sorry, I just missed the first part. So the something activity.
Oh no, I just wanted you to make sure that you are chasing down old building permits and closing them out, which is the same comment I make every time I see a report from you. So just keep on trucking, I think I said.
Okay. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've been working on updating our files and putting them into the program we have. I believe on the report. So to date, when this report was done, so far there's been 255 permit files put in. So basically we have to go through each file and find out when their inspections were completed or if they haven't been, and basically input all that information. So it does take quite a bit of time, but we are making good progress, and we'll just keep working away till we get the list completed.
Good for you. Thank you.
any other questions or comments on this report?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen, just a quick one. It's interesting to see the residential family dwelling number at 4, and then the seasonal family dwelling, I guess it is, SFD 9. So there is development in the municipality. That's great to see. And they are the big dollars on the permit fees. So good job, Tyler. Keep it going.
Thank you. If I could just add something to that, when you look in the 5-year comparison, our permit numbers do show that they are ahead for 2020, which is true. And the construction value and the permit value appears to be a little bit lower. I just wanted to point out that we did receive a fair number of applications late December, so they haven't been processed yet. So I just did a quick calculation, and we've actually surpassed, I think, the years both in construction value and permit value. And this year also we are down 6 dwellings compared to last year. So that is a significant number. So we still did pretty good this year, and there's still lots going on. We did have a lot of inquiries this year with people. They seem to be moving this way more with everything that's going on. So I just thought that was a little bit extra information for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Tyler? All right, then can we consider the motion to be to receive this report carried? Any objections? Well, hearing none, I'll declare the motion passed. That brings us to 12.2, which is a report from our fire chief, statistical report for 2020 outlining the activities of the fire department, fire and rescue service for the year. Could I get a mover and seconder that we receive this report for information, please?
I'll move. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions or comments?
My only comment is again to Bob, who's on here somewhere. I think. Anyway, yeah.
Yes, he's on the call.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Bob, and again, keep up the good work and give my congratulations, thanks to the fire department.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, there's Bob. He just showed up. You have a comment, Mr. Fire Chief.
Thank you. No, yeah, we had a busy year, so.
Comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, thanks for busy year during all the COVID stuff and everything else that's been around. It's been a pretty difficult time for a lot of people, and you folks are right out there with it. So again, thank you, and I know you had a very busy year.
All right, thanks. Anything else? So once again, can I assume that this report is acceptable? Thank you, we have received it. 12.3, an item that was raised previously about damage to roads, and the staff have produced a road damage policy. So can I get a mover and seconder that Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received the draft road damage policy for information, and the council approved the road damage policy and direct staff to implement it as of February 1st, 2021.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions too. So.
Okay, seconded by?
I'll second it,
I'll
Councillor
second it.
Lamb.
This was your item, I believe, Councillor Lamb, originally, right? Am I right?
It was, thank you.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a question on the $15,000. This seems to me like I hope that wouldn't be like a nuisance number. If we're looking at projects, I don't see much coming in under $50,000 to $100,000 projects. Just a comment that it seems like maybe $15,000 could be a little bit of a low benchmark there. And the other thing I noticed in this is that we don't refer to off-road equipment such as logging trucks, aggregate trucks, other than in this report. It's more specific to, I think, going into new buildings. I know it does refer to pavement, unpaved sites, roads, that kind of thing. But if we're specific to buildings in a certain price level, should we not maybe include other construction aspects of trades here?
Okay, who would like to respond to those questions?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tyler.
So there's very little, we did research numerous municipalities to see what would be included in their policies. There's only 2 we were able to find that did have similar policies. Another municipality that did used to have a road damage deposit policy did get rid of it. Now, the $15,000, so it's kind of a benchmark. We could raise it. That wouldn't be an issue. Just keep in mind, like, especially last season, we've seen a lot of those prefabricated sheds come in, and generally those trucks are fairly big, and so that would kind of apply to those buildings as well. But by all means, we could raise that if it's an issue. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I did review the policy with our Public Works manager, Mr. Creaser, and we did make sure, like, some of the wording in there, like if you see municipal sidewalk or curbing, etc. Obviously, we don't really have that in the municipality. However, if there is at a later date, it's the wording's in there, and also with the paved or unpaved highway wording, that's specific to the road standards that they use.
Okay, I was only concerned that maybe the 15,000 was going to be more of a nuisance thing for you. If it's kind of
Right.
Kicked in too frequently, but if not, if you covered it off, so be it. Thank you.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, I had circled that same 1.2, and I guess I had different thoughts on the 15, which is fine. But I had one of those sheds delivered not last year, but 2 years ago, and they came in on a big double 10 truck. Didn't do any damage on Canning Road, but I guess they could. Also, I'm thinking that people that do projects, they get deliveries of supplies, right, and lumber and concrete, a whole bunch of stuff. So, and this came about. The reason for this thing was it came about because of some damage that was done on Canning Road, and I've had calls from people, from outside of Owl's Nest, where people just came in to, estimate, a property or something, and they bring their bulldozer, right? And they park the bulldozer on Canning Road, for instance, and they, after they leave doing whatever work it is, it could be taking trees down or whatever, the road's all beat to heck, right? Because they've driven their machine over it, right? So, and then people would say, well, that's Tom who did that, right? That's his machine. And when I go to the office and say, can't we go back to Tom? Nope, we can't. So I'm not sure why it's needed at all, but if you need it in there, fine. But what are we going to do about the big, heavy equipment that gets parked on a municipal road and off goes whatever down the road to go into a lot. And that's happened over here, right? And it's happened in other places. That's what I wanted to stop, but I also wanted to stop someone putting a big dwelling up and trucks coming in all the time and wrecking the road. So those are my concerns. I don't know how you do it in 1, 2, but in the case of people coming in with a big tractor or grader or whatever, those are not $15,000 jobs. So are they going to escape if they have problems, or do we need to incorporate that in the bylaw or policy? Thank you.
Well, just further to Councillor Lamb's question, as I recall, this came up because of damage that was done when Bell constructed their latest tower at Sunny Slope.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, would this apply in that particular situation? I don't know. Did they take out a building permit for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, to my knowledge, there was no permit taken out for that. If I do recall, it was just for a tower, I believe.
Yeah. So, but my question is there any provision in this policy to deal with that specific situation?
I don't believe there is. That's maybe something that could be discussed with the Public Works manager. I mean, like, there's also the cost of doing business. So people are, they're using the roads and stuff like that. I mean, it'd be pretty tough to chase everybody around, like anybody that had something on a float trailer or whatever. Just my opinion.
Well, I can tell you my opinion is I get telephone calls from people saying they wrecked the road, and I go down and the road's wrecked. So we need to be able to respond to those sorts of things. And Bell made a mess of Canning Road. Now, thank God we were doing work on it, right? So they were able to escape, but we had to go cap in hand to try and get monies from them. I don't know whether we ever did get any monies. If we did, I don't know how much. But we need to cover those sorts of situations. Otherwise, it's free reign for people to do exactly the problems that I brought up. So I think you need to rethink this, great urgency to it, and incorporate, some of the thoughts that the mayor and I may have. And, if the rest of the council don't think that that's an issue, I guess they can vote it down.
Yeah, to be honest, I would be inclined to suggest that we defer this because I don't think we've solved the problem that caused us to go down this road in the first place. But well, let me try that. Is there anybody opposed to deferring it, sending it back for and asking staff to take another look and see if we can just make sure that we've covered off the not just ones that are tied to a building permit. Well, I don't hear any objections, so I'm going to note that one as deferred. The next one is item 12.4, which is a property tax collection policy update. Can I get a motion, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive the property tax collection policy update for information and that Council approve the revised policy?
I'll move. Councilor McEwen.
Councilor McEwen, thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Corin Matthews. My understanding is that this is a relatively minor change. Would someone like to, from staff, like to confirm that? Madam CAO, perhaps? Or?
Yes, I can. I was hoping Pat was here, but we seem to have lost her.
Yes,
yeah.
we do.
So now that we have a pre-authorized payment plan where people can make payments once a month for 12 months. That has been incorporated into this policy, which is G, electronic payments in the form of pre-authorized payments. I believe Pat also aligned the corresponding due dates. So we had our due dates were a little bit out of sync. So they're the end of the month now. And I'm just looking in the policy where she noted that it was just a verbal conversation, but you're correct, Mr. Mayor. There's nothing really has changed. Really, we're acknowledging the fact that we're doing some pre-authorized payments, and we're getting more and more people signed up all the time, and it just makes things a little bit easier to do monthly tax payments in the office environment.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions or comments on this one? All right, then, are you prepared to approve this motion? Anybody in disagreement? All right, thank you. The motion is carried. Policy is approved. That brings us to number 13, business matters. The first one, we have dealt with 13.1 and 13.2 earlier in the meeting. 13.3 was an oral report by our CAO clerk on waste management initiatives. Michelle.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let council know that we've moved into the Clear Bag initiative, and I haven't talked to the attendants recently. I talked to them earlier in the year, and we continue with the education. Some people are still bringing their solid colored bags because they have a few left, and we're permitting that. It's a long game, so people are slowly accepting the fact that they need to be in clear bags. And this, we think, and we won't know until we get a lot of data with our recycling, will improve the recycling. So I just wanted to let council know that. And there was a request that we look at what other municipalities are doing in terms of enforcement. And we look mostly at initiating a program and what other municipalities do when they started a Clear Bag program, which is exactly what we're doing, where we did an education, we did some reminders to people, we had information on the tax envelope. So we've done some Facebook posts, and people are talking about it. Some are complaining about it, but generally people are starting to understand that Clear Bags is the decision of council. So we're moving on with that, and I just wanted to tell council that it will be a success. Just give it a couple of months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on that report? Okay, I guess we don't really need to a motion for that. 13.4 is payment of the EMS supplemental levy that was that we've discussed a couple of times previously. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that council approve payment of the EMS supplemental levy, sorry, 2020 for 2020 in the amount of $19,542.81.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Gorham Matthews, seconded by.
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Councillor McEwen sounded like he reluctantly was seconding it.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, we don't like giving money away, do we?
Can I
So,
just ask
my
a question,
question is-
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted clarification. Would this levy, this amount of money would come out of the COVID recovery money that we received? Is that how we would pay this levy?
I'll ask our CAO for her thoughts on that.
It could. I mean, the intention when they sent the letter was that they suggested that we use our what they call the Safe Start funds. I think in talking to our treasurer that from a expense perspective for 2020, the municipality is in good shape. So it may be that that money is utilized for other projects, the nursing station or some of the other COVID expenses we've had, which really haven't been many, or the expansion of the municipal office. So I would leave this to the treasurer to make the final decision at year end as to where the money comes from.
So, okay, so let me ask Michelle, that makes it sound, you're talking about whatever, the 200 grand or something about, aren't you?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a first round of Safe Start funds, about $238,000, and then we recently received a second amount of $20,000.
Okay, so, but if we don't use that money, they're not asking us to tally up and say, oh, you don't have enough, send us money back or anything, are they?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there will be some reporting, and how that money is expended. It was a fairly vague matrix of requirements, and it really has to be related to COVID-related improvements. So one could argue that the expansion of the nursing station is an improvement simply to allow for the distancing. One could argue that improvements to the office is a COVID-related. So I know our treasurer is still working on that reporting piece, and it may very well be that she recommends utilizing the COVID funds for that expense. And I'm sorry she's not on the line, but it will be paid, and it'll be paid either through the COVID funds or through surplus funds from 2020.
Well, I would think we'd pay it through the COVID funds, and if we only need to put half or some part of the nursing station, we do, but you don't want to be short and sending money back, right? So if I had to tally it up, I'd be tallying, and that's part of it, because it surely is an eligible expense. It has to be. The only reason we got this, as Councillor Gore Matthews says, is because of COVID and shortages of staff and whatever, right? So anyway, you can judge, but we don't want to be sending any of that money back.
Yeah, we're not expected to send any of that back.
Okay, then that answers my question. Everyone, I know other communities have questioned it, like Netawan, I remember, and others. So they've all been satisfied that I know that the guy, the indication came out. So I'm okay with paying it, but everyone else is paying it too, I assume, right?
Through you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Mayor. Yes, sorry to interrupt. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I understand that the majority of municipalities have paid. I haven't done a tally recently, but certainly West Parry Sound and a good portion of the East Parry Sound have paid. And in fact, they had sent us a new invoice with interest, which I'm not recommending that we pay. We just simply pay what was owed in 2020.
Okay, is there anything further about this item? We're running a bit short of time here. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Conry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's carried. Item 13.5 is a report on online fire permitting, which has a fair bit of detail that, in the interest of time, I don't propose to go over. There is a compound motion to allow us to proceed right away with putting this, with making arrangements with a supplier to implement this system, which I believe will work very well for us. And it'll allow us to issue fire permits online in time for the upcoming fire season. And if we don't do that, we may have some problems with people getting fire permits. The largest channel that we had to distribute them in the past is not going to be available to us. So could I get a mover and seconder for the following, please? It's a four-part motion. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive the council briefing note for online permitting for information. That council approve entering into a service agreement substantially in the form of Appendix A with Fractal SaaS Incorporated. If you're wondering, SaaS stands for Software as a Service. And their product is called firepermit.online for use of their proprietary online fire permitting system. And that the estimated cost of $3,000 be included in the municipality's 2021 operating budget, and further that staff be directed to implement the automated online fire permitting system by March 1st of 2021. Is there a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you very much. Any discussion?
Good system, and it'll save us a lot of heartache.
I believe it will. I don't know if our fire chief wants to comment. He's been involved in the researching this and figuring out how it'll work and so on. Any comments, Bob?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a great move forward. It's going to save a lot of problems. People will be able to get the permit whenever they want, and I think it'll save a lot of headaches. No, thank you very much.
It'll also mean that there is one place that one can look to see exactly, one being our fire chief can look to see where fire permits are in place, so that as he gets calls about things, he can get a heads up in advance as to whether there's a permit out for the fire in question that has been observed. Anyway, any other discussion, questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Kuhn, one comment. Is this something that should go in the newsletter, or is it in the newsletter?
Absolutely, it should go.
It absolutely should. You are correct. And if you approve it tonight, that would be the plan.
Okay.
All right, can I, once again, I'll ask our CAO clerk for a roll call vote, please.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. I'm just taking a look at the time here. We still have an in camera. There are, what we have left on the agenda is we were going to have a discussion about technology platforms for future meetings. Councillor Lamb had asked for an item on communications, which I put as 13.7. We have councillor items, questions from the public. We might go over a little bit, but we can do if you're all right with that, we can do like a curfew motion, sorry. Do you wish to keep going, or do you want to save this for another meeting and cap it, save the rest for another meeting and cap the call at, try and cap our call at 10 o'clock?
Let's keep on going, in my opinion.
All right. 13.6, technology platform. I did send you all a note, so you know what my view is, and I won't repeat it. I will say we did have a problem this evening, which Judy had said that she was going to put up the slides for those presentations, and she ran into some difficulty with her computer that caused it not to work when she went to do it. But that's of course, that's one of the things that you can do with this technology we're using tonight that you can't do on an audio call, of course. But anyway, I guess we got by in the same way we would have done with an audio call. So I'll open it up to anybody else who wants to suggest whether you want to continue doing what we're doing, or do something different.
Councilor Lamb, I think I asked for this to kind of be on the agenda because it was being discussed kind of at council or emails or something in the background. But anyway, I don't have a problem with using this platform. I'm obviously using it. And I'm fine with it. But I'm not here to, we're not elected to say, I'm fine with it. We're elected to think of all the people. And I guess my concern is people who are out in the hinterland, Beth's out there, other people are out there, they may not, I guess they can call in, may not have data plans to Zoom, which takes data, I think. And it seems to me like Councillor Woods today is not on the call because he doesn't have an internet. So he's just on an audio call. And this isn't a hill to die on, but for me, but you know what? I want people to have access. I don't want them to be frustrated, and I don't want them to have data, because some people don't even have computers. So I guess if there's a way, and if we make it difficult for them to get in, it won't be good. So, as I say, Councillor Woods he doesn't have the internet connection tonight, he called in. It seems to me, and I'll finish with this, that for months we ran this thing without a glitch. We started trying to do, audio, video, and it sort of clunked, and then we went on to Momentum, and it worked well. That doesn't mean that the odd meeting, we can't have a Zoom call, but it just seems to me there's a lot of glitches here. I know our CAO, missed the whole presentation some months ago from the museum because she lost her internet, right? And anyway, so those are my comments. Yeah, I think I prefer to stay with the old system, but again, it's not a hill to die on. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I've been kind of in the middle. I've been doing pretty well. My connectivity is not the greatest here, but once I get into it, I seem to be able to hang in there. Am I presently on the screen? Because I've had something else go as a bit of a glitch here tonight. I've been on audio all night. I haven't seen anybody, but the audio conferencing seems to work, I think, quite well for me.
You're on the screen, and you have been every time you've been speaking, Councillor
okay.
McEwen. At least on my screen.
I don't see anyone else. I've got kind of a pattern thing on there, and I'm afraid to go too far afield or I'll lose myself. But anyways, the audio has been perfect tonight for me. And I have a new hearing communication system that's tied into the the system too, which really helps me along. But I don't know if Councillor Woods and I are in the same category of just on the fringe of the, connectivity. As Councillor Lamb alludes to, there are a lot of people out there who probably aren't getting the best reception, and or maybe they don't have electronic equipment, but they could do an audio call instead of a Zoom call, I suppose, or a video. So anyway, I'm kind of in the middle.
Anybody else? How is it working for you, Councillor Gore Matthews?
My connection's been good tonight. I'll say that in the summer, if it's raining really hard, my internet doesn't work for whatever reason. But so far it seems to survive snowstorms. I'm good either way. With Zoom, you always have the possibility to call in. I don't think it precludes anyone from participating or hearing what's happening during the meetings. You're either calling into the teleconference or you're calling into Zoom. I don't think it much matters which one you call into. So I'm good either way.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Brian.
The first time that we did the Zoom, I couldn't get linked up. I couldn't get my computer to get online. So I called in, and the reception that I was getting with my cell phone over the audio call was horrible. And then, in your email, thinking that, or saying that it maybe when someone was turning away from their computer, so the microphone wasn't picking it up. I was having a hard time hearing, and then I did get the sign on for the other Zoom call, and it worked pretty well. And then today again, I can't get on. I mean, my internet's been in and out all day today. I kind of feel like when I was a kid in the early 80s and my dad was getting me to move the bunny ears all over the place, standing there with my modem out the window trying to see if I can get a signal. But I mean, as long as people can phone in and get connected, I mean, yeah. I know a lot of people in the area don't have huge data plans. The data is quite expensive for them. But as long as the audio would work out on the phone call, I mean, sure, we could stick to Zoom, but I didn't see any issues or hear of any issues with anyone when we were doing the phone call meetings with Momentum. I mean, for me, the clarity was great on my cell phone. I never had an issue hearing anything that anyone had said. So, I mean, whatever everyone feels would be the best, I'm willing to go with it. I hope that everyone else in the community, all the other taxpayers, kind of feel the same, right? If they don't have an issue with it, then sure, we could stay with Zoom. But if they were having a bit of an issue, then maybe it would be better to go back to Momentum.
Okay, well, what's your pleasure? It doesn't matter all that much to me. I guess it is simpler to use Momentum. It becomes difficult if you have a large number of people on the call. If we only have, if we only have, the 4 councillors and 1 or 2 other people, then of course it's relatively easy because everybody knows who's talking and you don't have a lot of collisions and that sort of thing. But there is no ability to mute anybody who neglects to who neglects to mute their phone and goes away and it starts picking up noise or something. I've actually been on calls with Momentum audio only calls where we had to cancel the call and make everybody else call in because somebody walked away from their phone and it started to pick up background noise and we couldn't get hold of them to turn it off. So we just had to cancel the whole call we kick everybody who was online off the call and start it over again. But anyway, it's not, we certainly haven't experienced that before. We have, So if that's, if people would rather just do it audio, that's, that's
Mayor, would it be?
all right with me.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm finished.
Am I recording? No. Would it be a fair thing to say, listen, if there's no you know, presentations where there's slides and things like that, that we use Momentum, and where there is obviously slides and presentations and that sort of thing, and where we expect a lot of people to be on the call, that we use a Zoom call. The other thing that I comment on is this. This idea we can recognize who's on the call is not something we normally would do if we were non-COVID and sitting in the community hall. No one has to tell us who they are when they walk in the community hall. We don't say, sign the sheets there, who are you not? And as far as I'm concerned, we have no business asking who's on the call and who isn't on the call. And maybe I got it wrong, but we have to pick what we do in the community hall and make it work for COVID, right? So I see, you know, Sarah Cook here and Charles LaRose and Doug Hickey and other people. I don't need to see that, right? And I'm not sure I see it under Momentum. Maybe I do, but I don't need to see that. I just wonder. So I think we should do it on a regular basis. If we don't have presentations, just go back to Momentum, use the call, but when we need to use Zoom, use Zoom. So that's what I would propose.
Okay, well, we can do that. And you're quite right. I mean, people are, it is okay for people to observe. If they want to speak, they do have to identify themselves. That's our protocol. And the problem in the past, we did have a couple of situations where people did speak and then refused to identify themselves. But I guess we deal with that if that happens. It's unfortunate there is no mechanism with Momentum to keep track of where the call is coming from, not in real time. So after the fact, you can, if you can figure out what the number was. But anyhow, well, let's try that and see how that works. We'll go forward like that. We are now.
I'll make the motion to go by the curfew.
Oh, all right. Thank you. That's what I was coming to next. Is that I just pulled it out because we're past curfew. Give us a little more time. Councillor Lamb, seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. Is everyone in favor of that?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of a reluctant thing, but I guess we better do it. All right. So, Councillor Lamb, you had some comment you wanted to make regarding communications.
Yeah, I have, you know, 2 or 3 comments, and hopefully they're taken in good faith. As some of the people on council knew, I had my hip done in the fall, so I wasn't on top of my game maybe as much as I should have been. But I've noticed some communication issues that bother me as a council, and I think they need to be addressed. And one of them came up when I came up finally to our home up here on Saturday, and I pulled out the newsletter that was sent out at Christmas, and there's a message from council. Now, in my 13 plus years on council, that message has always come from council. That's what it is. Instead, there was a letter from the mayor, and I guess I must have missed it because I didn't hear somebody tell me, here's the letter from the mayor. And of course it says, I wish you Merry Christmas and that kind of stuff. And that kind of got to me because the message should be, the council wishes you Merry Christmas. And the items in there should be from the council because the mayor represents council and everything you do should be bringing readings from the council. It's not an I thing, it's a council thing. I then went and I thought, oh my God, somebody told me, and I read 2 or 3 weeks ago, a mayor's blog that not only talks about, you know, Paddy's Bay or something, it goes on to amalgamation and all that kind of stuff, right? I didn't see it. I don't think the rest of the council saw that the mayor's blog is in there. And if you want to write a blog, can I write a blog next week? Not tell council about it, not inform them what's in there and just do it? I don't think so. I think people would have a big issue of what I would say. So I just don't, there are some things that bother me. I saw Murray Chambers get a seniors award. That award was given by council. We should have invited other council members if they wanted to elbow bump when Murray got his award. So I could go on, those are my issues. Another big issue I have is doing council business, what I call sort of, by email. I don't like it. I've never liked it. I always try to fight that, and the Zoom meetings that we just decided on was done by an email. I'm the one that said, put the Zoom meetings on council on January the 18th. I don't think it should be done, whatever. I put the pool letter. I said, put it on the agenda. I guess it was some misunderstanding, but it didn't go on the agenda. So I want to really encourage council not to do business by email. As soon as we have 5 people communicating, technically it's kind of pretty close to a council meeting, particularly if you're making decisions that have to do with the public. So I know that's a long lecture, and I'm not trying to get into a big fight. I just, I've been on council long enough. I've gone through some of this stuff years ago, and it was fixed. I just want to make sure that it continues. Because I don't, anyway, I've said enough, so that's my concern, and that's why I wanted to bring it up tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think in the interest of time, I won't respond to it. Next time we'll allow council to write the message in the newsletter themselves. If somebody else can write it.
Well, hold it.
The only reason that I wrote it is because there was a deadline, and we were trying to get things out in a timely manner. I did think that council had seen it, and it wasn't. That's always been the practice, is that somebody has to write it, but
well, just hold on.
I'm not going to write it anymore. I won't write it anymore. I'll let staff write it, or you could write it, or whatever. And
I'm not writing it. It should be, what's happened in the past is staff comes up with items. We've talked tonight about 5 or 6 items to go in the newsletter. Staff fills in the blanks. That's what's always happened. I've never seen a letter from the mayor. And anyway, I'm good. Thank you.
okay, we're at correspondence. Somebody move the following, please. That whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 5 of the January 18th, 21 Council agenda. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion or action. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McEwen, thank you. Seconded by
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, thanks. Are there any that you wish to take out for discussion?
I'd like to take Mr. Hickey's note out for discussion. Brief.
All right.
Mayor, I'd like to just note that item E was received in public.
I'm sorry, which, I'm just gonna get the,
D, E,
I have,
that's E,
all right.
Dan Mallory.
I'd like number C taken out on the planning board to discuss the planning board.
All right, so I have C now. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying about item E.
Item E. Could bring that forward momentarily, just for a minute.
Okay, I'm not sure that isn't something that we discussed earlier, but anyway, it's all right. E?
Comment on it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
could I request item J, please?
Okay, yes. All right, any other ones? Okay, so I have C, E, H, and J.
Mr. Mayor, sorry,
Yes?
I think we need to respond to O as well. They're requesting a response as well from O.
Oh, good point. Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. I had put that one on there. All right, okay, so let's, can we agree that this is the correspondence that we're gonna talk about? And the rest we're just gonna accept? Anybody opposed to that? Okay, let's go through these. Item C, which was a letter from MMEH regarding the Perry Sound Area Planning Board.
So
Who wanted to talk about it?
I wanted to pull that out, and I mean, I don't know, we were supposed to, I guess, at some point get a report as to, the cost implications, I think, of this. My mind isn't made up from a Whitestone standpoint. I need to know more. And this sort of says, I just don't know the whole process and of getting out of the planning board. If Perry Sound drops out, are we all toast? What's our costs go up if they grant it, right? What are the pros and cons, et cetera? There's a whole report. This is a big decision on the planning board, right? And what are the costs and implications to the taxpayer in Whitestone if we do this? Also, it says in the fourth paragraph on the first page, we would like to be in a position by the end of January to compare the recommendations to the minutes and would appreciate receiving any comments or resolutions from municipalities at the earliest opportunity. Well, we're not even meeting from now to the end of January, so I don't know how the heck we can do that. But anyway, so I think this is ill-timed and asking, I guess the letter was December the 2nd, and we're seeing it now. So that's another reason we should have more regular meetings. But anyway, so I don't know. What are we doing with the planning board is my question.
Well, the short answer is that council, you may remember back in, I think, December, November, directed staff to prepare a report that answers the questions that you alluded to earlier. And that report has not been completed yet, I believe. But I'll provide our CAO clerk the opportunity to respond. I think we still have time. If we get that report in February, we can get our comments to the ministry. They don't move that quickly, but anyway, I don't know. Michelle, do you wish to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a report started. I'd actually planned to have it at this meeting, but I was waiting for a bit of information from the planning board, which I got, and some information from MMAH. They recognize that, and they haven't got responses from all the other municipalities yet either. So they realize that their report won't be written until February. The issue at hand for MMAH is just Perry Sound walking away from the planning board. None of the other municipalities have made any indication formally that they want out of the planning board. So that it's only Perry Sound that they're actually considering. But that said, they have talked to all the CAOs and talked about the possibility that there may be others that would leave. So all of that will be part of my report in February. And MMAH is aware actually just recently that the council will be talking about it in February. And they still have other municipalities to speak to as well. So the information is coming and you'll see it at the next council meeting.
Thank you. And someone has contacted this Ontario Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, told them you might get a response from us at the end of February or early March or something, but you're not getting one by the end of January. That's clear to them. So don't go send anything to the minister by the end of January.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, MMAH, Ministry of Municipal Housing, is well aware that that Whitestone will not have a report to council until February or an answer to them until that time. And they're aware of that, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple comments on this. The ministry, as I understand it, they're waiting for a hearing from the board by the end of January. But that comprises of us from our certainly local municipalities. There was an analysis done, and we're having a planning board meeting, I believe it was next week, and I'm sure we'll discuss it a little bit and we can bring information back to councilors. But indications are that Parry Sound being in the board isn't necessarily keeping us afloat, from what I can understand. Councilor Coram Matthews might correct me on this, but because of the activity through the planning board these days, and I think mostly, or a big contributing part is the rural system, which is smaller municipalities, outlying municipalities. We're supporting it pretty well from what I can see in terms of the support and cost of the thing. And is there going to be an effect on Whitestone? Minimally, from what I can see. Planning board's in a position right now to not increase anything this year and potentially move some monies around to offset some of the expenses that won't have to be taken from municipalities. So there are a lot of gray areas right now, but anyway, that's kind of my take on where I see the finances of the whole thing.
If I could add something, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just agree with Councillor McEwen's assessment there. What had initially been presented by Mr. Jackson was that Parry Sound actually brings not a lot to the table in terms of planning items. It tends to be more of the outlying communities that make up the majority of the projects that we look at. In terms of our levies and stuff coming up for 2021, we had a budget meeting before Christmas, and it actually looks like our amount each municipality will pay this year will be less than last year, just because of the overwhelming number of planning items that went through last year. Just due to COVID and everything, there was a lot of growth in the area, but all indications point to that Parry Sound isn't the glue that holds the planning board together, that it can maintain itself without them.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about this one? Okay, how about number E? Dan Mallory's email.
Well, Mr. Lamb and Councilor McEwen, I'd just like to just note that I believe this is regarding vacant lots that Councilor Mallory is asking for information on, and there are back lots on private roads. That's down at Fairholme Lake. So just to acknowledge that he had put that letter in, that's all I'm asking for, which I just did. Thank you.
But this is the item that we deferred for discussion to another meeting back up when we were in committee of the whole, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's permitting on private roads.
Okay, thank you. Item H is Doug Hickey's email.
Yeah, all I want to do with that is just defer this letter and its contents on the hybrid model, etc., to when we are discussing the pool, whatever the next meeting. I just want that deferred and inserted as an item or correspondence or whatever at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was going to be my request too. Thank you. Item J, the email from Ann McDermott regarding transportation in and around Perry Sound. Councillor Woods.
Yeah, I read through this and it really caught my attention. So it seems like they're asking if you think it would be a good idea to look into like a regional kind of bus line format to get in and around and basically in from outlying areas into Perry Sound. I didn't know what anyone else's thoughts are or if anyone had ever put any thought into this. I thought I remembered years ago that there used to be a guy that ran some sort of bus from one side of Perry Sound to the other, and it didn't work. I just wanted everyone to keep this in the back of their mind and think about it. And has anybody else heard anything about this? Like, Mr. Mayor, have you heard or had any discussions with any other mayors in the area, or has the CAO heard anything about this before?
I have not recently, other than the fact that the province has this as an agenda item for this whole subject of improving improving transportation, trying to encourage municipalities to think about this. But I'm not aware that there are any. There was a what Ann was talking about was a survey that and I saw it. I did not know how to respond to it, to be honest with you, but perhaps we should take that as an action item and do a little bit more work on it.
But, yeah, I think that might be a good idea.
I guess one of the things that we would need to do would be to think about what sort of demand there is in our community for, I mean, we have lots of people who go into Perry Sound on a regular basis because that's where you got a lot of things that you need. And perhaps that there is a demand there that could be filled by somebody, possibly by Barry Bell or somebody, but anyway. Beth,
Mr. Mayor,
you were going to comment?
yes, I was just, I know there's a program through the Legion that they participated in, a drive program where they would give rides to people into town to do their errands and such. I don't know if such a program still exists, but I think it was in association with the community support group, like through Belvedere Heights. It was a partnership with them and the Legion. I don't know if that program's still in existence and it's still meeting that void in this community, or if this would be something that's needed because that has lapsed and doesn't exist anymore. But that was an option at one point. There was a ride program that the Legion participated in.
Yes, and I think that you're raising a good point. That would be something to ask Tammy McKenzie about, probably, because they would, I know that they do fund they have funding for certain things like that when they identify a need, they, if they can find somebody to do it, they even, subsidize it or pay something towards it. If it's a need that people have, right? So I don't know if this is if this answers your question, Brian, but I guess we need to figure out how to respond to it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to be sure that everyone was reading it and thinking about it, kind of thing. Keep it in the back of our minds, but I think maybe we should be looking at it a little bit closer and see what the possibilities could be, or if we need it or we don't need it.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to, I think, to item O. which is an email from Statistics Canada. And what it essentially was doing is asking us to talk up the 2021 census. And I guess we should put something in our, I think probably put something in our newsletter and maybe on our website and Facebook pages as well. That would be my suggestion. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I would support that suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anything else? All right then. Thank you very much. I think we are done with correspondence. That brings us to Councillor, unless I'm missing something here. No, that's matters arising. We already did that. Councillor items. I just wanted to report to you that we have the Roma conference, a virtual conference, is on this coming Monday. We have arranged for 2 delegations as follows. The first one is with the Minister, well, it's the parliamentary assistant actually to the Minister of Natural Resources, to talk about the, what I refer to as the abuse of Crown lands west of Clear Lake, the off-roading and those other problems that we've had in that area. I did ask Councillor Woods to join me when we do that. These things are very short. They're about 15 minutes long. We are just preparing a little bit of background material to give them, but we have a fairly large file that's accumulated on this. And so that's, once we've got the sort of briefing note for it finalized, we'll be happy to share that with you. But it's, anyway, that's just to let you know that's coming up on Monday afternoon, the 25th. And the second one, which is shortly after it, is with the Minister of Infrastructure, Laurie Scott, and it is to talk about broadband strategy. And this is a joint delegation with Whitestone and McKellar. And we'll be trying to press them into coming up with a strategy and a proper strategy and roadmap for Parry Sound District, as opposed to the kind of ad hoc thing that the current provincial program is funding. And we're also going to try to get them to work together with the federal program that was announced recently, because the amount of funding that's available from ICON, the provincial program, is not sufficient for us to do anything useful in McKellar or Whitestone. And so that's just for information. Are there any other councillor items?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of them. Go on to the right page here. This week we've had a couple of decisions from the health unit in North Bay for Parry Sound, and I just want to comment. What's my feelings? And I had a couple calls on that, but to take the Dundome and take it down, it was already gone down from 10 to 5 feet, right? And basically kids, maybe some adults, but you know what? I just think it was a poor decision to make that decision. And then tonight, coupled with that, is today is that all the snowmobile trails are going to be shut down until the end of the lockdown, or whatever, the end of February or February 21st, or whatever. And again, there are people that can go out and snowmobile and not have 5 people and distance and that sort of thing. And I guess there's an argument the other way. But how many businesses do we have to kill throughout the province in changing some of this stuff. I mean, take a look at the duck run. I mean, for the love of God, the next month or so is prime time for that. You know, the snow's coming this week. The snowmobilers will be out, and they won't be out. They won't be selling gas. So anyway, it just bothers me. I suggest that, I don't know, maybe we need a more hearty discussion to send a letter to say, you know, whatever, or do nothing. But I just had to get it off my chest that I think that some of these are the wrong questions or wrong decisions, and other comments. The meeting agendas are too packed tonight. We did a great job of trying to get through, but we need to consider, you know, another meeting in February, and I know the mayor will look at that. The last thing I want is, I brought it up tonight, I guess it was the wrong time, but I would like the CAO to put under unfinished business the dog bylaw, and specifically the question and maybe a report or something on leash requirements within the municipality. So those are my 3 items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other announcements or items from councilors?
Yeah, just a comment. One item, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was pleased to read in the paper that the Regional Economic Development Group, or that office, has hired a James Cox as an economic development officer. Sounds like an interesting chap and has lots of experience. So I know, Michelle, you had something to do with that whole thing. So congratulations, and hopefully it's working good going onward. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods, I just got a couple real quick ones.
Go ahead.
Just to kind of go along with what Councillor Lamb was saying there about the health unit closing down the snowmobile trails. I really feel for our small businesses. I mean, Duck Rock and like loggers, we're going to take a serious hit with that there. I don't know, just kind of encourage everybody in the neighborhood. I mean, if we live here, you know, rather than maybe going to Perry Sound to get your gas, let's try and spend as much of our money with our local businesses, try and help them out. They are definitely going to feel a little bit of a pinch from the snowmobile trails being closed. And I actually had a couple residents contact me and ask me some questions about changes that we've done at the dump. No real big issues with the clear bags. Everyone's pretty okay with it, I would assume. The one question that people were asking me was the hill for the bin that we put in at Alds. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I mean, it is what it is. It's service in our bin. But I've had a couple of people ask me, what kind of money did we spend on that, and will we ever see a report on that project? And I didn't know, so I just figured I would ask.
Okay, I'll refer that one to our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a budget item under in capital. I think it was called bin wall, and if I recall, it was about $25,000 in the budget. So that's about as far as I can go in terms of what was actually spent on that. But we will certainly. I'll ask our manager of public works to do a brief report for the next council meeting to just outline the costs associated with that hill, as you call it.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Beth, do you have any items? I see you're waving a no, so thank you. We are over our allotted time here, so I would like to close the meeting, and I apologize to the councilors who are, or to the members of the public who are still on. I see a few of you are, and I apologize if you had questions. I think what we will, what we should do is we should set up our next meeting for perhaps the first Monday in February and try to pick up a little bit of the slack that we have here. We did have a very long agenda. So I'm going to suggest that we close the meeting and not do our closed session. We'll let our there's the two items in closed session will wait until can wait till the 1st of February. So
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I don't disagree with deferring the close. I think there was something come out late today. I don't even think the second item is still on there, but I might be wrong. So the other item, we can be dealt with. But in fairness to the people on, I don't think there'll be long questions or maybe no questions, but they've been on here for over 3.5 hours. And to say, sorry, we can't take any questions, it's just, in my opinion, we're over. If you're over by 10 minutes, so what if you're over by 15 minutes? Let them ask their questions. It's not going to go on and on and on. I think it's not right to say, sorry, tune in next time. Like, I just let them ask their questions. I don't think there's going to be any, perhaps.
All right. Well, I will ask, are there any questions from I see there are 2 or 3 people on the call. Are there any questions from members of the public?
There is a question from Doug Hickey.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
It's really a follow-on to a question that Councillor Woods asked of the pool group on December the 14th. And when he asked the question, is there room to expand? And the answer was, oh yes, we got lots of room to expand. And really, that concerned me. I wanted to ask the question then, but the meeting got shut down at 8:30. And here's my question to council. And if council doesn't know, council needs to ask the pool group, because all of your electorate need to know. And here's the question. If the pool group decides to add more facilities like tennis courts or bocce balls, or I don't care what it is, because there's more room, they proudly said that, will we, Whitestone ratepayers, be locked in to paying 6.1% of any added facility? Are we locked in for any expansion? And do we know that? And if we don't know that, we need an answer from the pool group in writing. So that's part one. Part two, and it's very similar. Let's assume that something happens along the way where we decide that we feel that it makes more sense to pour money into our nurses station, which I think is really going to benefit Whitestone, both from a business standpoint and from a health standpoint. And so let's say for whatever reason that the costs go up for the pool support, can we back away? Can we get out? Are we allowed to, or are we locked in for the duration? And if we don't know the answer, we need to get that answer from the pool group in writing. Ratepayers need to know that. Council needs to know that. So those are my 2 questions.
Okay, the simple answer to your question, Doug, is that the Whitestone Council, assuming, as I keep saying to people, that this whole thing goes ahead in terms of the federal funding and so on, this Whitestone Council will decide what motions it wants to pass in regards to the support for the pool. So the question of whether we would accept the responsibility for sort of an unlimited exposure, if you will, for ongoing costs is certainly a legitimate question. And I guess I can't give the answer on behalf of council, but I wouldn't be surprised if council said, well, no, I don't think we want to do that, right? But one of the things that is still up for discussion, I mentioned earlier that there are some things that are being talked about informally in various circles, of course, is you know, what level of confidence do you get that the operating cost deficit numbers are valid? And I would suggest to you there are a number of us who think that we need more information about that. So that's one of the reasons why we're not rushing to make a decision, because there are lots of unanswered questions like that. Well, not lots, but there's a few. And so anyway, good question. I don't have the answer, but I do want to say that the answer doesn't come from the pool committee. I don't think the answer comes from Whitestone Council when it has motions in front of it to pass, right?
Okay, thank you. Let me just comment why I asked. I don't know if council realizes how interested the community is in the pool. First of all, it's a major expenditure. And if you think back to the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Group, 80 people from Whitestone answered that survey. And based on what Councillor Lamb said, over 3 times that many people have already provided input. So there's a lot of hunger to know what is going on. That's why all the questions. Okay, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor, not to disagree with you, but what Mr. Hickey's asking is that we put, and you can say, well, we'll put whatever conditions we want on, but let's say we do what they're asking us to do. And we just say, great, here's $527,000, and here's whatever he comes up with on the operating cost. And then 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, a new council comes in and says, hey, we're now paying $37,000 a year. You projected 18, we want out. Now, I heard someone say at one point, you've got a 1/12 vote and it has to be unanimous for you to get out. And we need to get that answer from, not us, from the people that are going to be running it. We're only 1/12. So we need to ask those questions of whoever the heck it is that we need, whether it's the mayor's committee or the whatever committee, we need to ask that. And there have been people, by the way, that say the operating cost at $300,000 is a bunch of gold, okay? And you were quoted actually in a Carling meeting, right? That December 13th, this guy, Robin, somebody called you on this thing. He had the numbers off the charts. And also, I think the mayor of McKellar's got a big problem with the numbers. Maybe he wants to blow it. I think he says they're suspect. And I've done an awful lot of research on this. And these
Mr. Mayor, can we take this under advisement?
Hold it again, Mr. McEwen.
Let's take this under
I have the
advisement.
floor.
You're out of order.
Joe, you need to wrap it up, please. Come
Okay,
on.
I will. I'm just saying they're important questions, and I don't
I'm not
believe your
disagreeing with
answer
you.
we decided is the right one. Thank you.
Yeah.
God. Give him a pillow.
Yes, you don't like what's said, right, Joe?
I got a question for you.
Who is
Hey,
speaking,
Joe.
please?
My name's LaRose.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
I see you now.
So, 2 questions maybe. But will you do a cost benefit analysis of the nursing station with also input from the community to understand if that is really an impactful project? Will you do the same with the pool? Because when I saw that nursing station proposal go by and I see it getting cut by 1,500 to 1,000 square feet, my first reaction is someday you'll look back and say, geez, we should have made it 1,500 square feet. So if you understand the cost and benefit to your community, it may help you make better decisions. So I guess I don't really have a question in there other than, will you be doing that kind of a study?
Sure. Let me try and answer that. The way that we started the discussion around the nursing station was to ask, well, first of all, to try to to try to ascertain what constraints we had in terms of the physical site. And as you heard tonight, that we did get a fairly good indication that expansion is possible on the site, on the existing site. So we don't have to move it, find some other place to move it to. But the second thing was to determine, well, what are the services that are currently being offered in the nursing station? What is the demand for increased services, and what other potential is there for offering things, other things such as physiotherapy, for example, and other kinds of services that might fit well with that particular model and for which there might be demand. And we actually, I say we, I was mostly an observer, but the pool, the nursing station committee got data from the Parry Sound Health Center. And we also got some data from CIHI, which is public data that epidemiologists use to plan healthcare facilities, to see what the potential was for future growth. And that information was only shared in a very cursory way in the presentation you got tonight. But I did mention to the committee that when we go out with more, before we go out with more detailed information to the public, we need to sort of have what I would call the business case for why this is a good thing to do. And I think it is a good thing to do, by the way, but we need to, outline some of the benefits to our community and our ratepayers, and to Whitestone's position in this area. So, and it's certainly my intention to see that is done, to answer your question. Does that help?
It's a start.
I guess you want to see it first, but yeah, I mean, I think.
Well,
obviously,
I think that, yeah, let's see it. Show your ratepayers what you're doing.
Was there a second question, Charles? Or
Well, it was to say that would you do the same kind of analysis on a rec center? You know, there's two words that are common between these two projects, and the word is center. So where do you want your center to be? Do you want it to be in Dunchurch at Whitestone, or do you want it to be in Parry Sound? That's another, and I'm just making a statement. Keep up the good work, keep working through it, and we'll support you somehow.
okay, well, thank you for that. Are there other questions from the public? Okay. Would someone move the confirming bylaw, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Seconded by.
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Can I assume that no one is opposed to passing this bylaw? If you want, we can take a recorded vote, of course. But okay, the last motion that I'm looking for tonight is a motion to adjourn.
I will so move. Councillor McEwen.
Well, all right, I heard Councillor McEwen and I think Councillor Lamb. Did I?
Oh, Councillor Woods.
Oh, it was Councillor Woods. I'm sorry. All right. So on this one, you can vote with your feet. Thank you very much for your perseverance. Sorry to keep you so late. I knew it was going to be a long agenda. But we will reconvene probably on I think it is the first Monday is the 1st. Am I right? I'm going to try and get my calendar to come up here. Yes, it
February?
is. It's the 1st of February, so that's my suggestion is probably when we'll have a next meeting, but I'll have to sit with the CAO clerk and figure out just how much agenda we have. But anyway,
Good night, everyone.
thank you. Until then, stay well.
Stay safe, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.